That's good there.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, no, I never actually went to the meetings.
Yeah, I got it.
You got it?
That's not it.
Ready?
We are, Your Honor. Defense is ready. Sorry.
Hey, you all ready?
Stays ready.
That sounded like in Pulp Fiction, when like, what's your name?
This is big.
Students, do y'all know that movie? You're too old.
Yeah.
I see you shaking your head, no.
The no, yes. Okay, no? Oh, well.
You have ever seen the Vegas? No.
Ruby, are you ready?
Yes, sir.
We're back on the record. Outside the presence of the jury, counsel's present for both sides. Mr. Pearson is in the courtroom. The door is unlocked, is that right? Everyone can get in?
I would not state that on the record.
Okay.
Is it? Okay, yeah, okay.
It is, okay, we took a lunch break, but I want to make sure. Chris, will you check that for us?
Now with.
Court needs to be over.
Sorry, I believe so.
It's probably unlocked when we came in, because we
Okay.
got locked out again, and we, yeah.
All right, good deal. All right, state, we're here for a hearing on an expert. State, call that witness.
State calls, Crystal Schwarzburger.
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 Yeah.
Can you raise your right hand for me? You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please have a seat. If you would, adjust that microphone closer to you and it'll move up and down. You want to be about a fist from the microphone to your mouth. Make sure you're comfortable and seated in there.
Thank you.
All right, if you would, please tell us your name and spell it for the court reporter.
Crystal, Crysyal, Schwarzburger, Schwerdtfeger.
Schwarzburger?
Schwarzburger.
Okay. State, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Crystal, what are you an expert in?
In forensic nursing.
And what is forensic nursing?
It is a subspecialty of nursing, where we provide nursing examinations for patients that have gone through traumas such as sexual assault, domestic violence, human trafficking, elder abuse, child abuse, strangulation.
So in addition to forensic nursing, would you say that you're an expert in SANE exams
Yes,
and victim dynamics?
yes.
What was that last word?
Victim dynamics. What background training or education do you have to be an expert in those fields?
So, I have to be first a registered nurse for 2 years. And I have to go to, university, in order to get my bachelor's degree of nursing, for my registered nurse. That's what I did. And then I, had other extensive training for my, thing. And that included 84 hours in order to take care of all ages. It's divided up between adult adolescents and pediatrics. You can do one or the other or both. And I chose to do both. After that classroom training, then I am required to do speculative exams with a physician. And then I had to do well child checks with a pediatrician. And I had to then perform forensic examinations with a preceptor who was already a forensic nurse. And I also had to do courtroom hours where I was present in the courtroom and watched the courtroom procedures.
So in addition to that training and experience, do you hold any certifications here in the state of Texas?
So yes, I have my nursing license. I am certified by the Office of the Attorney General in adults and adolescents, and then also in pediatrics for my SANE. And then I'm also certified internationally through the International Association of Forensic Nurses for my adults and adolescents. And that requires for me to perform 300 hours of services taking care of SANE patients. And then continuing education, and then also sitting for a 4-hour exam.
On your CV, it shows that you have 6 current certifications active, or 6 current certifications in Texas. Are all of those still current?
Yes,
And do you also have to do continuing education in the fields that you're an expert
yes, I do.
in? And are you up to date on your continuing education in those fields?
Yes, I am.
Are you a member of any professional organizations?
Yes, I am.
Do you know about how many?
I'm going to guess 5. I haven't counted them.
But it's a number of organizations.
Yes.
What are some of those?
The International Association of Forensic Nursing, and the Texas chapter of the International Association of Forensic Nursing, the American Academy of Forensic Nursing. I'm trying to think them off the top of my head.
Sure. What about the Texas Association Against Sexual Assault?
Yes.
And the Texas Council on Family Violence?
Yes.
Okay. Have you had any leadership positions in those professional organizations or in your own?
Yes, in the International Association of Forensic Nursing, I serve on 2 committees. I serve on the government committee, and I serve on the membership committee. And then I'm also, I serve as a board president for Bluebird's Hope, Inc.
Have you given any presentations on these topics that you're being asked to be an expert for today here?
Yes, I have.
About how many presentations have you given? If you can recall the number.
Again, approximately somewhere between 5 and 10.
And have you been called as an expert before in felony cases?
Yes, I have.
Have you been qualified as an expert
Yes, I have.
in the topics that we're talking about here today?
Yes, I have.
Where do you currently work?
At Bluebird's Hope Inc.
What is Bluebird's Hope Inc.?
It is a nonprofit organization, or a forensic nursing program, that provides the forensic nursing services, to patients.
Do you get called by hospitals to come and do those forensic exams?
No, I think that sometimes, yes, if they do not have, a forensic nurse of their own, they may call our hotline and ask if they can send a patient that they have to us. But we are a freestanding, forensic nursing program. We do not work, for a hospital. We do have, one of our facilities is inside of a freestanding emergency room. They donate, space to us.
But you're not associated or under the control of the hospital.
We are not.
Where have you worked prior to starting Bluebird's Hope?
I worked at Christus Santa Rosa, Hospital in San Marcos. That was previously known as, Central Texas Medical Center before it was bought out. And then I also worked at Crisis Center of Canal County.
And what did you do in those roles?
I was a forensic nurse.
Would you perform SANE exams?
Yes,
Would you talk to victims?
yes,
Would you deal with family violence dynamics?
yes,
And is that what you still currently do at Bluebird's Hope, just in a private business capacity?
yes, it's, called community based.
When it comes to the types of practices that you do at Bluebird's Hope, or when you were at the hospitals as a forensic nurse, are the type of training and education that you received, were you trauma informed?
Yes,
Would you say that it was a victim-centered approach?
yes,
And is that standard within the community of forensic nursing?
yes, that is the standard of care.
The standard of care that's used in forensic nursing, has that been subject to peer review by multiple agencies and experts in the field?
Yes,
And do you, both when you worked at Christus Santa Rosa Hospital as well as Bluebird's Hope, do you still follow those practices that have stood up to peer review in the forensic nursing community?
yes.
Awesome.
That's,
Just a few questions.
Your microphone, sir.
Ms. Schwarzburger,
Yes,
did I get that right?
yes,
All right, okay. So just to be clear, do you know what expert opinions you're here to testify to today?
I believe I'm here to testify to what a SANE exam is,
Okay,
and to talk about that and describe that, and, any questions that may go along with that.
okay. And upon what are you basing your expert opinion, if any? Is it your education,
My
experience?
education and experience, yes, sir.
Any scholarly journals that you've reviewed that you'd be offering any testimony on or from?
No, I don't believe that there has been any, research, based on, you know, as far as what the standard of care is, except for, the standards of care, like our protocols and procedures
Okay,
in general.
okay. So to your knowledge, you are only here to testify as to what is sane is, what a safe is, correct?
Yes, and what that can, what that experience can be for a person.
Okay.
Cause that's all together. You know, the experience, what a sane exam is, what that is to a person.
Okay. And were you working, have you seen the complainant in this case, Carissa Ellis?
So I saw her when I was working. Yes,
Okay. And you talked with her,
yes,
correct?
yes.
And you explained what a safe exam is.
I don't think that we got that far.
Okay.
She said that, she did not want the exam.
Okay. And you mentioned that you had testified to similar topics in an expert capacity before?
Similar, yes, forensic nursing examinations, yes, sir.
Okay, and was that in the Russell Wilson, or I'm sorry, in the family violence impeding breath case? In the 218?
I know it was the 81st district. I would have to look at my CD to, recall that.
Okay, and was that roughly April 11, 2022 to April 14, 2022? Is that the case that you're talking about?
Again, I would have to look at the date to
Okay.
remember that exactly.
Okay. And that was a family violence allegation where there was impeding breath or circulation.
So I was an expert on the case. I was not involved in the case. So
Sorry, strike that. Your understanding of the charges being tried in that case in which you testified was that it was an assault family violence by impeding breath or circulation. Is that fair?
that is fair.
Okay. We'll pass the witness.
Just one, as the CEO of Bluebird's Hope, do you just do sex assault forensic examinations?
No, I do not.
What other types of cases do you work on now as the CEO of that company?
Well, I'm not just the CEO, I'm a forensic nurse examiner, and I do, sexual assault exams with domestic violence, sexual assault exams with strangulation, domestic violence with strangulation, domestic violence on its own, human trafficking with strangulation, elder abuse, child abuse.
So just any mix of all of those kinds
Yes.
of topics.
Yes,
But in this case, you're aware that it's just adult sex assault that you're being asked to testify about, correct?
that's my understanding.
No further questions.
Nothing further.
All right. You can step down, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else we need to take up?
No, Judge, we've just asked that this court, find that this expert is an expert in adult sex assault exams and victim dynamics based on their training and experience, in this case.
That's
At least at this juncture, we don't have an objection based on what's been listed.
very good.
Yes.
And just for the court's understanding, she also is a quasi fact witness because she did physically see the victim at the hospital that day. So we'll make sure to discuss both of those aspects as well. She's not just a non-interested expert, so.
And that's my understanding, based on communication from the DA's office.
Okay. Is that your first witness too?
No, Your Honor, we're gonna call it.
Okay, the expert as well?
Expert as well. It's the one that previously testified in the first case.
And so before we went to lunch, the parties agreed on the scope of that witness's testimony. Can you tell the court what that is, and defense confirmed that that is what you understood the scope to be?
So. Judge, we sent an expert notice that she is an expert in victim behavior and dynamics, sex assault, trauma, and domestic violence. She works at the Hayes Caldwell Women's Center. We would ask that she be qualified as an expert in all of those fields, with the only limiting factor being that she does not discuss alcohol as a factor in victim response.
Or memory, was my understanding of the court's ruling. And alcohol's effect on memory from a clinical or medical perspective.
Your Honor, the state is fine with not going into how alcohol affects memory in this case, and just sticking to the basics of sex assault victim response and those relevant portions.
Okay, will you say again each of the areas?
Sure. Victim behavior and dynamics, sexual assault, trauma, domestic violence.
We would have a relevance objection to domestic violence. I don't know that there's any, I don't know that that's an issue in front of the jury, but with that exception, we have no objection. Or that is our understanding of this, the scope of the testimony to be provided by this witness.
Let's be more precise on when we say she's an expert in sexual assault.
Sure, victim dynamics of sexual assault.
Very good.
And Judge, I think we noticed her as an expert in domestic violence just because she can speak to that. We have no intention of going into any of those in today's case. We're not going to talk about the cycle of violence or anything like that.
Okay. Very good. Let's go ahead and bring her up, and can you bring in the jury for us?
State calls, well, do you want me to?
I just want you to have her here.
Okay, gotcha.
We're off the record.
Patricia.
Hold on. Patricia, what?
I think at least part of this.
Oh, yeah, that works.
Thank you.
Of course. And we gave you back 4, right?
Oh, we actually put them in.
No?
We should probably do that.
Yeah.
I trust today, but we should
We
probably.
can do it again.
Yes, I've got 4.
Okay, we'll,
This one is not numbered. Or maybe it is on this.
we didn't technically enter it. This was just used for a foundation of 5 and 6. So this is not in evidence. We're gonna grab 4 though.
There, there's a mark.
Something before they say they're given to the jury, they should office.
All rise for the jury. May be seated. State, please call your next witness.
State calls Patricia P.
Could you please rise for me, ma'am? You raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Thank you.
Please have a seat. Adjust yourself close to that microphone. It'll move up and down for you. And if you would, please tell us your name and spell it for the court reporter.
Patricia Ladem, Patricia. Platero, Platero.
State.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Platero, what is your current occupation?
I am a counselor at the Hayesville Women's Center.
And I actually want to go back and start with education and training that you received to hold that position. And so what does it take to become a counselor at the Hayes Caldwell Women's Center?
I hold a bachelor's in psychology. And I also hold a master's in social work and currently working on my clinical licensure. I have about a year left on that, which requires about 3,000 hours of clinical supervision.
How long have you been a counselor at the Hayes Caldwell Women's Center?
For about going over 2 years now. But prior to that, I was a legal advocate.
Can I get you to adjust that microphone just a little, maybe higher,
Yes.
or maybe you, and the base will move closer to you as well.
Is this better?
Yes, thank you.
And that actually is what I was about to talk about. Now, you've not just worked at the Hayes Caldwell Women's Center for only 2 years, correct?
No, I've been employed with the Hayes Caldwell Women's Center for over 11 years now.
And what roles did you hold before becoming a counselor there?
I previously worked at I started out at the shelter as a peer counselor when I only had a bachelor's degree in psychology. And I also worked as a legal advocate doing case management. Worked there for about 2.5 years, and then transferred over as a full-time legal advocate at the Counseling and Resource Center.
And before that, did you also work in the field of, I guess, violence against women and families?
Yes, I worked at the National Domestic Violence Center.
Now, what types of training have you received outside of your education in this field?
Yes, so I've gone to many trainings over 11 and a couple of months or 1.5 years that I've been employed with the Hayes Caldwell Women's Center, including not just for sexual assault, but also for domestic violence. And a lot of times, many of them really go together. I have seen over the 11 years that
a lot of clients that I have worked with not only have experienced family violence or domestic violence, but they have also experienced sexual abuse or sexual assault in their life. More so than not, actually. But I have gone through a lot of training, so to speak. over-
And in addition to going to those trainings, have you actually been a facilitator, and given presentations at, advocate trainings and the like?
I do. I do presentations for the OAG certified advocate training, which is through our agencies, to be able to, for one, to be able to either be an intern for any of our oncoming interns for the year, or to be able to volunteer at our center, or for new staff members, they have to go through our training, which is OAG certified.
So what are your duties now as a full-time counselor at the Hayes Caldwell Women's Center?
So I have a full caseload on top of facilitating 2 support groups. One of them is for, well, both of them actually are for adults. I did have one that was specifically for children, but I do see both adults and children, both that have experienced either domestic violence or sexual abuse in their life. My caseload is anywhere from, I would say, anywhere from 22 to 24 clients for a 6-month period on top of my 2 support groups that I have. I also am on call periodically.
And what does that mean?
That means that if there is a sexual assault or domestic violence, sometimes involving strangulation or both, strangulation and sexual assault, whether it's a child or minor or an adult, I would be the advocate that responds to that call and is there for the victim. Those can usually last anywhere from 4 to 7 hours. That doesn't include the time that we have to wait for the sexual assault forensic nurse to show up.
And I actually want to now kind of narrow our focus and only talk about adult sexual assault. How many victims of adult sexual assault do you think you've worked with over your career?
Gosh, because a lot of times, many of my adults have not reported, much less have gotten an exam. I would have to say that 60 to 70% of the clients that I have worked with in the 11+ years have been, at least at some point in their life, have been abused sexually, either by, as a child or as an adult in their life.
And so with that number, if you have about 20 to 24 cases every 6 months over your 11 years, what were, I guess, did all of those patients, did all of those sex assault victims respond the same to their assaults?
No, absolutely not. It really depends on their resilience. It depends on their support system. It depends on their just ability to be able to bounce back, right? From their prior experiences to previous trauma. And that really depends on everyone's resilience, right? So depending on how much trauma they have experienced in their life, whether it's their childhood or whether it's their early teenage years, it really just depends.
Let's talk about what some of those responses can be. What are some sorts of the common trauma responses we see in sex assault cases?
So there's different types of responses. So there is fight, flight, there's freeze, or there's fawn. And every one of us have these responses, and it doesn't necessarily have to be sexual assault, but it can be. So we either know, hey, can I take this person on? Am I strong enough to push this person off me? Right? Can I fight them back? Am I able to run? Am I fast enough? Can I run? I have to look and see, right? Am I able to do this? Do I need to freeze in order to survive this? Because if not, I'm not gonna survive this, and I'm gonna die. And this happens like this, in a split second. Because all of the other parts of our system completely shut down. We are in a automatic or autonomic state where we have to survive. Our digestive system has to like shut down because we can't digest food right now. We can't do anything else but think of surviving. Or do we have to play fawn? And for some victims, it's fawn, right? Do I have to comply with this person in order to make it out alive, in order to survive this? So those are some of the responses that may occur, and it looks different for every situation, for every person.
And do we know about how long it takes for those autonomic responses to wear off when they do happen?
No, it really just depends on that threat, right? Because we have our nervous system, which is our sympathetic part that's saying there's danger, right? That's like heart racing. It's getting us ready, right? We have to fight. That part of our system. Or then we also have our parasympathetic system working, which is like, okay, I'm safe. I can cry, right? I can cry, I'm relieved. The danger's over, it's done, right? I can start to digest food now. Right, I'm okay, I'm safe. I don't have to, versus where like our sympathetic system is like, my fingers are feeling numb because I don't need to have sensation in my fingers if I need to fight, if I need to punch. I need to be activated. I need to be pumped up. But sometimes, depending on the environment, it may be going up and down. Am I safe? Am I not safe? Am I safe? Is this safe right now? Is this an okay environment for me to be safe? It doesn't understand, especially if it's never gone through this before. And that's the tricky part. If you've never experienced anything like this before, your nervous system is going, what the heck is going on? And what are you doing? Like, it's like you're giving me a drug that I've never had before here.
And this brings up a good point. Will people's responses to trauma like this differ if they've gone through something similar in the past?
If they've gone to something similar in the past, then they're gonna go back to usually that response.
But if it's the first time,
But if it's their first time, it's gonna be like haywire, like a short circuit. It could be a haywire, like what just happened? What are you doing? You know, am I safe right now? Is this okay? Right? Or what's happening? In a state of shock, if you will. Because you've never done this to me before. You know, and now all of a sudden, here we are. So what are you doing?
and so if people can have different autonomic responses, that flight, fight, freeze, or fawn, can people also have different demeanors once they do feel safe and they're actually processing that trauma?
Absolutely.
What does that look like sometimes? What's the range there?
Yeah, so for some people, it may seem like everything's normal again. For other people, it may seem like they're just not themselves. They're completely checked out. For some people, it may seem like they're themselves one day and then not themselves another day. It looks very different for everyone. What I do notice is that most of the time, people want to, especially when it comes to sexual assault, because that is taking away a part of you, right, that is so vulnerable. That most of the time people just want to forget. You just don't want to talk about it, right? You've already maybe spoken to 2 or 3 people already, like whether it's law enforcement or a nurse, and you're just tired of it. You just want to maybe avoid and just maybe forget about it. And there's other things that, are still happening in your life. Maybe you have midterms, maybe you have, bills to pay, you have other things that you have to focus on that you dissociate. You focus on other things and put that on the back burner, like, I'm fine, I'm okay. And I'm sure that maybe some of you guys have done that before. It's like, you know what, I'm okay. I'm just kind of push through some things in order to, move through it. But inside, you're really not okay.
And I want to go ahead now and talk more specifically about sex assault, SANE exams. What is a SANE exam that we've been talking about throughout this trial?
Yeah, so it's a specific exam that is done by a specific nurse that they undergo very rigorous training to be able to collect evidence that can be used in court for, sexual assault, DNA's collected, any sort of evidence, but it's a very long, very strenuous procedure. And I know it's strenuous because I have sat through the exams many times over many years. So if it's strenuous for myself and the nurses that are highly skilled to do this, it is extremely strenuous for the victims and survivors. Many times I have gone to these exams where there isn't a nurse that is available until the next day. So that victim has to go home. And they're told to please not shower, but at least try not to, so that they can preserve any evidence. Can you imagine not being able to shower after being sexually assaulted? And that's the first thing you want to do. Not being able to just feel clean. So they have to wait until the next day. And that 10, 12, or however many hours can seem like an eternity. And so many times I have seen that victims just say, I just don't want to do it anymore. I just don't want to think about it.
And speaking of the length of time of some of these exams, how, you said they can be up to like 8 hours. How long are the exams even once they finally meet with a forensic nurse?
Oh, that can be up to like 7 hours.
Even once the nurse is
Yeah,
there?
yeah.
It's not just a quick procedure.
No.
Were you present during testimony in this case?
Yes.
Were you here when we heard that the victim was still at the hospital at midnight?
Yes.
Would that be a situation where sometimes hospitals say, you'll just have to come back tomorrow, even if you want the same.
Oh, yes.
What are all the parts, if you know, about the same incident? Like, what all can they do, collect, if you set them?
Yeah, so there is pictures, there's statements that are taken. There is a device that is used as well. If there's, just to be able to take pictures internally to see if there's any damages or anything. Internally, if there's any type of injuries that, are detected internally. So it's very invasive. Right,
And just to be clear, this device that's used to take pictures internally, what is that device?
the device, you know, I have the name at the top of my head and I can't think of it.
Would forensic nurses use a speculum?
Yes, yes,
To allow photos of inside of the vagina?
yes.
Okay. So in addition to that, what else will they do?
They're taking statements from the victim, so just like recollection of the timeline, history taking, anything from collecting any evidence from like hair, checking for bruises, doing just a full like history and checking on mental health state as well. Also any medication that needs to be taken as well is given.
So with your experience of sitting through these exams and also having other patients that have dealt with sexual assault, do all of them get SANE exams?
You know,
Are SANE exams usually, have you seen cases where law enforcement will get a search warrant to force someone to get a SANE exam?
I have never seen that in my over 11 years. Seen,
Just not a common practice,
no,
even though it is possible.
maybe it's possible if there was a child involved, but even then I have not ever seen that.
We want women to make the choice.
We always want them to be able to make, and men, because
Sure.
I've seen that as well.
And men can get SANE exams also.
Exactly.
When you were present for the victim's testimony today, did you hear that she denied wanting the SANE exam?
I did not hear that she denied wanting the same exam,
She didn't get one.
but she did get one. That's correct.
About how many, or what percentage of the patients that you see do you think even get SANE exams?
I would say maybe 25, 30%
So the vast majority of people
do not.
that have experienced a sexual assault don't even get it.
That's correct.
Even though they get told all the benefits of potential evidence that could be collected, right?
Well, here's the thing, right? You can hear some of these things, right, as people are telling you, but when you're in that trauma response, sometimes you're hearing some things, but it's literally coming in one ear and going out the other because you're not really listening. Right? You may be focused on other things and you're not really listening. So all of it is like, okay. I have no idea what you're saying, but Okay,
We heard that Carissa was described as a shell of herself after this assault occurred. Is that potentially common for victims to kind of experience symptoms like that?
you mean as far as like changing in their personality? Or
Correct.
just once they were bubbly and now they're kind of to themselves?
Yes.
Yes.
Your Honor, I was going to ask for permission to approach the court reporter. I will follow your previous instruction.
Hmm.
Plain statement for the court. Anger, aggression, sobbing, can those all be common responses to trauma in the moment?
Yes, yes. What I just witnessed is that fight response. So when we're just talking about the different trauma responses, that is a clear indication of a fight response.
Were you here when the victim said that she had to push the defendant off her when she realized it was Lincoln Pearson inside?
Yes,
Would that also be one of those fight responses
absolutely.
versus a freeze response where she might have just laid there and waited for it to happen?
Correct, yeah. So she has that combination of fight and flight.
Because we also see her leading the apartment.
Yes,
And do those make sense together?
it does. So with flight, you're gonna have that high energetic, that avoidance, that anxiety, that panic.
And Judge, I think her testimony was that he had pushed her, not the other way around.
Judge, she said that she pushed him off and then he pushed her down. I think that the evidence speaks for itself.
Yes, what the witness heard.
So you were here when the victim was testifying, right?
Yes,
And you remember how she described waking up to that.
yes,
Do you believe that during her explanation of the events that she experienced both fight and flight?
yes.
Judge, I'm going to object to her speculating on what was going on in somebody's head. That's the jury's job to establish witness credibility.
Judge, I don't think this goes to witness credibility. I think this is something that an expert that was here listening to live testimony can talk about as part of their expertise.
Overruled.
And so just ask the question again, do you believe that her explanation of the events both show a fight and flight response?
Yes, they do. Especially with the fight, there's that rage, right? There's that confrontation part of it as well. And then the flight, that anxiety, that avoidance, that high energy part, trying to run and trying to flee.
Have you seen other victims of sexual assault have to come and testify in trials of their case?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Have you had to see some of your clients or patients over the years come and testify at trials about their sexual assaults?
To be honest, I have not,
Okay, why not?
because most of the time they're too ashamed. They haven't made a report.
So they might just come to the Caldwell Center, but they don't actually ever go to law enforcement.
They want to, exactly, they want to process the trauma, they want to heal from it. They no longer wish to be captive to that trauma. It's affected their life, it's affected their relationships, whether it's with their children, with themselves. And they're just ready to really just be free of it.
Have you come to trial, though, to see victims of sexual assault testify before?
Yes,
Is it a hard thing to do for victims?
yes.
Judge, I'm going to object to speculation.
Sustained.
You saw Carissa testify earlier today. What was your opinion of her demeanor here at trial?
Judge, I'm going to object. If she wants to offer what she observed of her demeanor, I'm fine with that. But
Can you tell me how that applies within the scope of this witness?
Judge, I think it goes to victim dynamics.
Overall,
She seemed more open when the prosecution asked questions. Her demeanor, her shoulders were more hunched, rolled over. You saw her head tilted more down whenever the defense attorney started asking questions or cross-examining her. So her demeanor changed significantly between prosecution asking questions and the defense.
Judge,
And
I'm going to renew.
And that's just my observation, but
hold on, when he makes an objection, please stop testifying. Sustained. Thank you.
we'll end with, were you surprised at her initial reaction after the assault?
no,
Were you surprised at her decision not to do a SANES?
I was,
Were you surprised at her decision to give a statement to the police? Those are all things, depending on the person, that could happen after a sex assault.
it's much easier to make a statement than to be probed for hours.
Last one, Mr. Allen.
Vince,
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Platero, I wanted to ask you a few questions.
Sir. The microphone.
Yes. Ms. Platero, I wanted to ask you a few questions. Where do you work?
The Hayes called the women's law.
And why do you work here?
Because I'm passionate about what I do,
Okay, you love what you do.
of course.
Do you consider it a job,
I consider it my passion, my career,
a calling?
my career,
Okay. And a passion?
and a passion is,
Okay. And the Women's Center, they operate on grant funding. Is that correct?
we have different,
Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
Bias, Your Honor?
overall,
You can feel free to answer that. Your center operates on grant funding. Is that correct?
there's different funding, yes,
But some sources of that funding are grants, correct?
Yes,
Okay, and some of those grants come from the office of the Attorney General,
that's correct.
and that is the prosecutor's office,
The Attorney General does many different things. Yes,
including prosecuting.
yes, that is correct.
Okay. In fact, they are the chief prosecutors in the state of Texas, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. You talked a lot about individuals that have been through some kind of abuse, correct?
Yes.
On direct examination?
Yes, can you be more specific?
Absolutely. You discuss, and how do you refer to victims, survivors? How do you refer, what's your preferred terminology?
It really depends on the client themselves. It's how they
Okay.
identify.
Okay. And you want to be victim focused?
I want to be client centered.
Okay. Trauma focused, I'm sorry. Okay. And so these individuals that have been through some abuse, whether it's a survivor, a victim, whatever phrase you're going to use. And those can be men. But you work at the Women's Center.
It just happens, it was funded originally, like when it was created, it was originally women's and we just, the name has stuck, but we do service men as well.
Okay.
So it just, happens to still be called, he's called a women's center, but that's just because of the origin of where it came from, but we service men and women.
Are there discussions to change the name to be more
Yes.
victim?
Hold on.
focused?
Hold on, one at a time, please.
Are there discussions?
Hold on.
Are there discussions to change the name to be more victim focused?
Yes, but that's above my pay grade, so.
Okay. Because you certainly want to be victim focused,
Of
correct?
course.
Yeah. Don't want to make any men feel bad when they come to the center to seek services, correct?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Being trauma informed, that term gets used a lot. What does that mean, to be trauma informed?
So that really means just being able to really be sensitive to the client, right, to that victim, that survivor, and where they're at, right, what they're going through. And that could be with law enforcement, that could be with, medical personnel, that could be with people in the court, right? The DA's office, it could be anywhere.
I read that a good definition of that term is to recognize the pervasiveness of trauma in the world and seek to be responsive to it. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Okay. Any reason to disagree with that?
No.
And when you say that, again, to be trauma informed, part of your job is to seek out some of that trauma that could be present in somebody's life, correct?
To seek out.
Yeah, if trauma is pervasive, part of your job being trauma informed, I would think, is be proactive in recognizing that trauma. Is that fair?
Well, in recognizing, yes, but I don't seek out that trauma. They come to me and I meet them where they're at in their trauma.
Okay.
I never force them to, whether it's to, for example, report or not report. It is always me and the client, unless it's a mandatory report, such as child abuse, elderly abuse, disabled abuse. Unless it's something that is mandatory, I never, ever force them or try to persuade them to do anything that they are not wanting to do. This is something that is completely up to them. I am there as their counselor to help them process.
That's a great point. So again, you want to be victim focused. And so nothing is forced on one of your patients, correct? One of your clients,
Right.
correct? But you want to be proactive in looking for signs of trauma, I would think, correct? When you see these clients,
Yes.
correct? You certainly don't want to ignore those signs, right? If you're doing your job.
Right.
So in that sense, if somebody presents to you and they are very angry, is that consistent with having experienced trauma?
Oh, yes.
Okay, if somebody is sad, is that consistent with somebody that has experienced trauma?
Yes.
If somebody is excessively happy or laughing, is that somebody that is that a response that is consistent with having experienced trauma?
That also could be it.
Okay, if somebody is scared, is that consistent with somebody that has experienced trauma?
Yes.
If somebody is frustrated, is that consistent with somebody that has experienced trauma?
Surely, yes. Everybody gets frustrated.
If somebody is calm, is that consistent with somebody that has experienced trauma?
If they're extremely calm and in all circumstances, so that would be a little alarming if that's like their demeanor at home.
So if somebody was calm, you would make a value-based judgment about how they were presenting to you?
If they were calm, like in all circumstances, and that was like their response to everything, I would wonder why their demeanor is always calm in every circumstance, and. I
And would you
think that's-
confront them with that?
Hold on.
One moment, please. So to both of you, let's make sure that he's finished his question before you begin your answer. Please allow her to finish her answer before you start your question.
Certainly, Your Honor.
And let me finish before you start your question. Start your question, please.
Certainly, Your Honor. And I would think you would confront them with that, right? You would confront them with their reaction?
I don't confront my clients, I
Okay.
would be curious. So I would ask more questions, like I'm curious, why? Right? But I wouldn't confront them.
I have yet to hear a reaction that wouldn't be consistent with trauma. Is there a reaction or some type of emotion that they could present to you that would be inconsistent with trauma?
You know, I can't think of one right now, but it's really circumstantial, and it just depends on the context of it. Everything really depends on the context.
And when you're talking with these people, with the clients that you work with, you're generally aware of the situation that has brought them in front of you. Is that fair?
Sometimes, and sometimes I don't find out about certain things until month 3.
But for hospital response calls, you're informed of what the situation is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you have an opportunity to visit with them about the situation?
In hospital response calls?
Yes.
No, for hospital response calls, I'm usually there for support. I'm not there as a counselor, I'm merely there as an advocate.
And if they submit to a sexual assault forensic examination, part of that examination is a medical history portion where they would describe what happened.
Right.
And if they share details about the situation that you know to be inconsistent with perhaps physical evidence or the offense report, Would you confront them with those inconsistencies at all?
No, that's not my role.
Okay. Would you ask them questions about that?
That is not my role,
Why not?
because I'm there as support and to give them information
Okay.
regarding our services, but I'm not there to investigate, to interrogate, to ask questions. I'm just merely there as the support during a very, strenuous, long exam that they're about to have.
Okay.
And in fact, there are times where they may not want you there in the room while they're getting this exam or getting the medical history.
How many times have you done that?
Have I done what?
Have you been an advocate?
Oh, in the 11 plus years,
Yes.
I'm on call at least every other month. So I can't even count how many times I've gone to the hospital, anywhere from here, room service, pays and calls.
10,
Oh, more than that.
I'm sorry, what was your first?
50?
Probably way more than that, at least maybe 100.
And out of those 100, how many have you had concerns that their lived experience was maybe inconsistent with physical evidence?
I can be honest with you, none,
Okay, none of those.
none.
Okay. But again, you're not there to investigate.
That is correct.
You're there to be supportive.
That's correct.
And it sounds like you kind of take everybody that you work with at their word. Is that fair?
I need them where they're at. In fact, when
Well,
Near
hold on.
me.
So you don't confront them.
that is not my role.
You don't ask clarifying questions.
That's correct. That's not my role.
And okay. And you never encountered that.
I have not where I'm like, wait a minute, this doesn't sound right. No,
And do you know how many of the people that you've worked with over your time there has the allegation and a false allegation?
I do not, because I don't get to work with them. In other words, I don't get to be their counselor, or I didn't get to be their legal advocate. So once you're dispatched to a call, if you're on call and you happen to be the person that goes out on that call, you can't work with them.
Okay.
So.
But
I don't
you're
see
certainly
that.
aware that people are falsely convicted of sexual assault.
Yes, I'm aware of that.
And how many of the people that you've worked with, has there been a subsequent acquittal in a jury trial just like this?
I wouldn't know.
Well, but the dispositions of cases are public record. It's something you could look up, correct?
That is something I could look up if that is something that I wanted to do, but that's not my role. Is to finding whether somebody is guilty or not guilty. I know you mentioned, the OAG earlier, but that is not my passion. My passion is not to find somebody to be guilty or not guilty. My passion is to merely help that victim or survivor process that shame, that pain, and that trauma that they've experienced.
Okay.
Not to find justice. If that is what they want to do, then that's up to them.
But that's, of course, assuming that they have experienced a traumatic event, that it's not a fabrication, that it's not a dream, that it's not a hallucination, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Because again, you don't follow up to see what the disposition of the case was, if it was dismissed by the prosecutor's office, if a jury decided that there wasn't sufficient proof. You don't look up any of those things.
That's correct.
You take the victim, you take your client at their word, and that's it. Okay. You don't make value-based evaluations of the information they're providing. And if they provided you an account of what had happened that you felt like subjectively was just patently ridiculous, given the evidence in the case, you again, being victim focused, wouldn't confront them with that, correct?
I don't know what you mean by ridiculous.
Okay. Demonstrably inconsistent with the physical evidence.
I've heard a lot of things that are pretty demonstrous, so it's, to me, ridiculous is, there is no such thing as ridiculous.
Okay. But let's say demonstrably inconsistent with the physical evidence. Again, you would not confront them, correct?
I wouldn't confront my client, no.
And you would agree with me that the purpose of the safe is to collect evidence.
It is, yes, and to also make sure that everything's okay, that the victim is okay.
Because there's multiple parts, right? There is kind of a medical history portion. Why are you here? Tell us about what happened, right? There is a physical inspection where the person they would look for injuries, right? Correct? There would be an anogenital examination if that was important, correct? And I think what you were looking for was colposcope, correct? Yeah. So that's that camera that could be used along with the speculum.
Yes,
Yeah. But would you also agree with me? And then there is evidence collection. So DNA swabs. And you've seen that process conducted before, have you not?
yes,
Okay. And a DNA swab is just a sterile Q-tip that would be dragged across the surface, either a table, the surface of the skin, a weapon, things like that, right? Takes just seconds. Would you agree with me?
well, yes, but when you're collecting.
Hold on. Would you agree with me that taking a single DNA swab would take less than a minute? Can we agree on that?
Yes,
Okay. And being victim focused and not forcing one of your clients to do anything that they didn't want to do. If one of your clients came into the ER and said, I don't want to do a medical history portion, I don't want to do a physical inspection, I don't want to do an anogenital examination, I don't want to use the colposcope, I want law enforcement or a nurse to collect one DNA swab that can be used in court. As part of this is for evidence collection, would that be okay? Or would they be forced to do all those things?
I don't know how it would really hold up in court to just do one swab. That's, I mean, you'd have to ask a nurse to pick where, you still have to collect history, like,
Sure.
there's, you have to figure out where am I gonna collect this swab from, right? Where am I gonna get the best DNA evidence to collect anything?
So if one of your clients came in and said, look, I was just sexually assaulted. I understand part of this process is evidence collection. I really want you to collect evidence. I was sexually assaulted in my vagina, and I would really like a DNA swab collected. the nurse would say, no, no. You have to go through the medical history portion. You have to go through a physical. So that would be the response
That would be-
hold on, would be that you would have to submit to all those things before evidence could be collected? Is that what your sworn testimony is today here in court?
Well, I'm not the sexual assault forensic nurse, so I can't speak for them.
But you are here as an expert
I am.
testifying,
As-
hold on, about sexual assault and sexual assault dynamics. And you have observed a safe being collected before, is that correct?
That is correct, but
Okay.
I have never had a client or victim, right, because they're not a client of mine if I have to respond to the hospital. I've never seen a victim say, I just want one swab. And nor have, so I would not know how to respond to that. And again, I'm not a sexual assault forensic nurse, so I don't know what their protocol would be. If that was to happen, that would be something that only they would be able to answer.
Okay. But that wouldn't be very victim focused, would it? Forcing them to go through that whole process if all they wanted was just evidence collection to bring the perpetrator to justice?
That wouldn't be.
It wouldn't be, would it? I mean, that would kind of fly in the face of everything that you guys stand for, to be victim focused.
And to force them to have an exam that they don't want to
Right.
have, yeah, that would not be very,
Would not be trauma centered,
Hold on, please.
right?
that would not be very common.
I agree with you. And do you understand that evidence collection portion, they're looking for DNA,
Yes.
deoxyribonucleic acid, or commonly referred to as DNA. And that can be used here in court.
Right.
And that's strong evidence that a jury just like this one could consider
Yes.
if it was collected.
Yes.
And you heard the complainant in this case testify,
Yes.
correct? And you heard her describe that she didn't really know what all the safe entailed.
That's right, that's what I heard.
Okay, so all this testimony about how long it is and how intrusive it was, that, I mean, being honest with the jury, that really didn't play a part in her decision, fair?
No.
Correct?
I just heard she was
Yeah.
there 4 hours.
Judge,
and-
can the secretary allow my witness to finish her answer?
Both of you, but allow her to finish her answer. Please don't begin your answer until he's finished his question. You may proceed.
I would respectfully offer that she is a witness, not the prosecutor's witness. But I understand the court's ruling, and I will proceed. And you also heard that she testified that shock had worn off by the time that she was asked about the safe exam. So all that testimony about, you know, how the auditory response gets turned off and how you don't process things. I mean, by her own admission, she said, no, you know, the shock had worn off by then, I was fine. You heard that testimony, correct?
I did hear that.
Okay. And to be clear, did you, was the complainant in this case one of your, not client, patient? Was she your patient?
No,
Okay, you've never spoken with her?
I've never spoken with her.
Okay. And you just sat here in court and watched. So fair to say that you can't testify what's in her head
That's correct.
and evaluating what happened. That's not your role, that's the jury's role, correct? You're certainly not here to testify to what is in her head.
No, I'm just here to testify on different trauma responses to my knowledge and my experience as a counselor.
I'll pass the witness, Sean.
State,
No redirect, Your Honor. Can this witness be excused?
I'm gonna ask you that question.
She can.
No objection.
Thank you, ma'am. You're free to go about your business. State, call your next witness.
The state calls Crystal Schwarzburger.
You raise your right hand for me. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Please have a seat. If you would, adjust yourself close to that microphone. The base will move forward and the microphone up and down. Please tell us your name and spell it for the court reporter.
Crystal, Cryystal, Schwarzburger, SchwerdtFeger.
State.
Thank you, Judge. What is your current occupation?
I'm currently a CEO, a state coordinator and a forensic nurse.
And let's actually break those up and specifically talk about you being a forensic nurse first. What education or background do you need to become a forensic nurse in the state of Texas?
So I have to be a registered nurse, which requires, for you to have, your associate's degree or your bachelor's degree. And then once you're a registered nurse, you have to be a registered nurse for 2 years before you can go into training to be a forensic nurse. Or Spain, they call that, saying forensic nurse interchangeably. And, then, you have to take, depending if you want to treat only adults, only pediatric patients, or everyone, you have to take more classroom time. And I decided to do all ages, so I had to do a total of 84 hours of more classroom time. And then I was required to perform pelvic examinations with a physician and child well checks with a pediatrician. And then I had to do courtroom hours where I had to observe since I would be testifying. And then I had to perform forensic nursing examinations with someone who was already certified as a SANE or a forensic nurse in order to apply and receive my own certification through the Office of the Attorney General to become a SANE. And then after that, I did 300 hours of care to my patients and continuing education. And then I sat for the International Association of Forensic Nurses and their board test, and I became certified internationally for adults and adolescents.
So with all of those certifications, are you still active with all of those certifications here in the state?
I am.
In addition to those certifications, have you had to do continuing education to keep up those certifications in the state of Texas?
Yes, I do.
And is that a yearly requirement that you have to do?
The OAG's office for their certification is every 2 years. The registered nursing license is every 2 years. And the International Association of Forensic Nurses is every 3 years.
And so those are the certifications that you have to get hours for.
Yes,
In addition to holding those professional certifications, are you also a member of any professional organizations?
yes. I'm a member of the International Association of Forensic Nurses, the Texas chapter of the International Association of Forensic Nurses, Texas Association Against Sexual Assault, and the Texas Council of Domestic Violence.
And in addition to those professional memberships, have you ever had leadership roles in those organizations?
Yes, in the International Association of Forensic Nurses Association, I serve on the government committee and I serve on the membership committee.
Do you also do professional precepting? And can you explain what that is?
Yes, so I do precepting, and what that is that I train other nurses to become FAE nurses or forensic nurses.
Have you given presentations in the field?
Yes, I have.
And what types of topics have you talked on?
Sexual assault, domestic violence, strangulation, human trafficking, elder abuse, child abuse.
So now that we've kind of talked about what it is to be a forensic nurse in Texas, you mentioned that you were also a CEO. What are you the CEO of?
I'm the CEO of a nonprofit organization. The name of that is Bluebird's Hope, Inc.
And what does Bluebird's Hope Inc. do?
We're a community-based forensic nursing program that provides these forensic nursing examinations to patients who've gone through traumas.
Are you associated with a hospital or medical organization like that?
We're not underneath them. We're not employed by them. We are freestanding. We do have one of our facilities are inside emergency care of Schwarzburger, and they provide us with a free room that they donate to us that we can see patients out of.
So do patients have to come to Bluebird's Hope themselves to get treatment or forensic examinations from you?
Can you clarify that they have to come to us?
Sure. Are doctors recommending them to go to you, or are they having to find you and go to you themselves?
Both can occur.
So prior to working at Bluebird's Hope in this nonprofit capacity, where did you work previously?
Before that, I worked at Christus Santa Rosa San Marcos in that hospital, and before that, it was Central Texas Medical Center. I worked there, and then I also worked at the Crisis Center of Mountain County.
And back on September 28th of 2019, where were you working?
It was either Central Texas Medical Center or Christus Santa Rosa San Marcos. I don't remember the timeline of when it was bought out.
But that's the same hospital?
It is the same hospital, yes.
Is it the same hospital that's down on Wonder Road?
Wonder World, yes,
Across the highway?
yes.
Okay. And did you actually see the victim in this case, back on that day?
Yes, I did.
How long did you actually see the victim?
Just a few minutes.
Why was that?
Because she said that she did not want an exam.
And had she been talking to somebody prior to you arriving in the room?
I believe it was, a police officer, and I believe she did speak with the, charge nurse at the emergency room, because the patients always speak with the charge nurse and the triage nurses before they come to us.
So you're never the first person in that line?
No, I'm not.
And by the time that you showed up, you're saying that the victim had already made up her mind.
Yes.
Were you able to explain to her what was all required for, part of the same examination?
No.
If you had been able to, what would you have told
I would have told her and explained to her all of the parts and her rights, all the parts of the exam and all the rights that she had, as a person who has gone through this trauma.
So let's actually break those two things apart really quick. What are the rights that victims have, when it comes to exams like these?
So the rights have changed since that time.
Can you explain what they would have been at the time?
At the time. So, at that time, patients as an adult had the right within 120 hours to have a sexual assault exam or forensic nursing examination done. If a law enforcement officer approved that exam. And they had the right to have it done within any time within that 120 hours.
So to actually stop you right there, if back in 2019, a victim had decided, you know what, I don't want an exam, but then, 124 hours later decided that they did, would they have been able to go get one on their own?
Only if law enforcement had approved it at that time.
Okay, and the rules have changed now, correct?
Correct,
But back in 2019, when this occurred, those were the rules that we were dealing with.
correct,
Okay, that 120 hours.
correct.
Okay, so in addition to the rights that she had, what are the procedures that take place during a full SANE exam?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
What are all the parts of a
All
full
the
SANE
parts.
exam?
So when I first encounter a patient, I explain the exam to them. And everything that goes with it, all of their rights, that they can choose to do all of it, part of it. And as we go along, that they can change their mind at any point. About one thing or all of it. And then, I obtain consent from them, but consent will be a continuation, throughout the whole procedure. Then, after consent, we talk. We talk for a long time. The exam usually takes me anywhere from 4 to 6 hours. And I gather a medical history from them, everything about if they've had surgeries, what kind of medications they take, diagnoses that they've had, anything that has to do with their medical history. And then we talk about what brought them to see me. Why are they there to see me? And I let them tell me their story. Sometimes it is, I don't remember anything, but this is what happened and this is why I don't remember. Sometimes they remember very vividly. what happened to them. And, there's very wide variation between people. Sometimes it's due to drugs and alcohol that's been involved. And then after that, depending on what they tell me happened to them, will depend on what kind of treatments are given to them. And also that will depend on like the physician's orders. We'll offer testings or medications for sexually transmitted infections or pregnancy prevention. We could also offer blood draws and urine tests if there was drugs or alcohol involved. And we could offer samples to be taken and collected for law enforcement to take, if that was the patient's choice to be tested for any possible DNA.
And I want to stop right there, actually, and talk about DNA specifically. Are you the one actually collecting DNA in SANE exams?
So I wouldn't say that I'm collecting DNA. I'm collecting what I call samples. It could be like clothing, or Q-tip swabs, that I am literally like rubbing on the body that could potentially collect DNA, but I cannot say I'm collecting DNA because it could or could not be there.
And you actually bring up a great point, because do you actually know the statistical likelihood of DNA being collected from SANE exam swabs?
So I know that at the lab in Austin, that my company kits have been sent to, that their statistics have approximately been 35% of kits have shown DNA. 35% that have been collected show DNA.
So 2/3 of the time that you take DNA swabs during SANE exams, they come back negative.
Correct, yes.
And that swabs inside the vagina as well as outside the vagina,
Yes, or even clothing.
or even clothing.
Yes.
So just because somebody gets a swab doesn't mean there's going to be DNA on it.
Correct, there's not 100% chance.
And have you seen swabs come back negative, even in cases where there was confirmed penetration?
Well, just to be clear, I don't always get DNA feedback from the lab. I get feedback maybe once a year as an overall broad. This is our numbers. These
Gotcha.
are where we're at. So I don't get numbers on every kit.
Gotcha, so you can't say, in this individual case, I know I got it, in this individual case, I
Correct.
didn't.
No, that goes to law enforcement.
Gotcha, you're just saying, as an expert, we get our numbers back yearly, and I know 33% of all of the kits we send in get DNA responses.
Yeah,
I
that
think it
was
was 35% is what she testified to your own.
35%.
correct. That was in Texas. Mine was 33% for mine, exactly, for my kids.
Gotcha,
But I did say 35 for the state.
so is 35% national or a statewide average?
Statewide, yes,
And then-
for Austin,
And your individual statistics are 33%?
yes.
Okay, just make sure we get that clear. Yours are 33, statewide average 35.
Yes.
Okay. How many victims of sexual assault do you think you've worked with over your career?
Approximately 200. So are you specifically asking sexual assault or all of my forensic nursing examinations, like with domestic violence and
Let's say both. So all forensic exams, how many?
approximately 200?
How many just adult sex assaults?
I know I have written on my CV, I would have to look to,
Do you have a copy of your CV?
I did not bring my copy of my CV.
Judge, can I approach to want to refresh your memory?
Thank.
Your memory refresh?
Yes,
How many?
approximately 75.
Thanks. Did all 75 of those victims respond the same way when it came to whether or not to get a SANE exam done?
Absolutely not.
How many different ways do you think they responded?
75.
Why do you say that?
I say approximately 75 because every single person responds differently because they're individual.
Based on your training as a nurse, a forensic nurse, and now as a CEO of a company, does every sex assault victim get a SANE exam even done?
Absolutely not.
What are some of the reasons that victims don't go and get a SANE exam done?
Sometimes they are afraid because sometimes they know the perpetrator. Sometimes they blame themselves. Even if they do come and get an exam, we do ask the question, in my practice, we ask the question, do you blame yourself? 95% of the time, the answer is yes, that they blame themselves for what has happened to them. And, so them blaming themselves is a big reason that they don't come forward. Sometimes if they don't remember because of alcohol or drugs, they don't remember everything, they don't believe no one else is gonna believe them. They don't remember exactly what happened. Or they think, oh, I should have done this, or I should have done that. Why didn't I run away, or why didn't I do this? So they feel bad about themselves and they don't think people are gonna believe them, so they don't come forward.
Have you ever seen in your experience a victim come into a SANE exam and say, I don't want to do anything, I just want one swab taken over my vagina?
Yes, I've seen victims say they just want one swab. I've seen victims say, I just want medication. I've seen victims say, I just want to be tested. I've seen victims say, I just want pictures taken. Or I just want you to write down my history of what happened. So different people want different things.
Or, for example, have you seen people come in and say, I just want to get an STD test?
Yes,
Different for every person.
yes,
If Carissa had wanted a SANE exam, all part or none, would you have done one?
yes,
Either by yourself or someone else?
yes, she would have received services.
Do you remember how long you had actually been working that day on the 28th?
Offhand, I do not. I do not.
Okay, but you're not the only one at the hospital that could have done this.
No,
Do you ever force victims to get a SANE exam?
absolutely not. That would be violating them all over again.
So, I mean, at the end of the day, do you as a forensic nurse have to take the victim at what they want to do?
Yes, absolutely. We have to honor, what they want. We have to give them the control of their body back.
Pass the witness, Your Honor.
Defense?
Few questions, Your Honor. Miss Schwarzburger,
Yes.
is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Sir,
Turn on my microphone. How are you today?
I'm well, and you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for being here.
Yes, sir, thank you.
Yeah. So you were asked questions about this occasion when you spoke with the complainant in this case, and that was September 28th, 2019. Some time ago. Is that
Yeah.
fair?
Yes, sir.
Do you have an independent recollection of those events, or has this been largely refreshed from other records?
It has been largely refreshed from other records.
Okay. Do you have an independent recollection of that conversation with the complainant?
After being refreshed, I did legitimately remember
Okay.
talking with her.
And to be clear, there were some questions asked about the protocol back in 2019, that it's different than it is today.
Yes, sir.
That back in 2019, you had to be seen within 120 hours.
Yes, for adults.
Okay. But to be clear, this was well within that 120-hour window, correct?
Yes, sir. We would see adults within 120 hours. That's not to say, someone could not have gone home, gone to sleep, and then come back the next day and have had the exam. As long as it was within 120 hours.
Okay. So that 120-hour window, even back in 2019, that wasn't a limiting factor in this case, correct? That would not have precluded her from getting an exam, even back in 2019,
It could have been if she had changed her mind.
but she didn't.
Oh, I don't know that.
Okay,
I'm just answering your question.
fair enough. Fair enough. But if she had changed her mind, and we've heard no testimony about that, as long as it was within 120 hours, she could go home. If, say, the hospital was busy that night, she could have gone home and then come back the next day.
That's correct.
But are you familiar with the Texas Model Protocol on Sexual Assault Investigations?
You might have to expand.
So that was a kind of a promulgated best practices for the investigation of sexual assaults. It was created in conjunction with the Texas Attorney General's Office, the San Marcos Police Department actually contributed to that, the Austin Police Department, lots of different agencies across the state and develop best practices for how sexual assault should be investigated. It's kind of the.
I'm sorry, I don't investigate, so I may not be familiar with that standard.
Okay.
Protocols.
Is it your experience that sexual assault forensic examinations would be triaged appropriately within the hospital?
That would be my understanding, yeah.
Okay. And again, if you testified that a survivor could participate in all, some, or none of this forensic examination if they wanted to.
That is correct.
And you yourself have collected swabs that have the potential to have DNA evidence on them.
That is correct.
And I think you testified that it's a Q-tip, not one that you get at Costco in the big box. It's a sterile Q-tip, fair?
It is sterile, yes, correct.
And that consists of just dragging that cotton tip across the surface.
It can. Not necessarily. In some cases, sometimes we do insert a speculum
Okay.
and into the vagina.
That's a great point. So there is an internal sample that
Yes,
can be collected. But there is also an external genitalia swab that can be collected.
Yes,
And if somebody presents to you and that's all they want.
yes, it depends on what the patient, so chooses to do.
Okay, it is entirely consent-based.
Yes, correct.
And so if a survivor walked in and you started in the medical history portion and they said, look, I don't have time for all that garbage. I just want you to collect a single DNA sample from my external genitalia, and then I want to leave. They would be allowed to do so, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Nobody would make them submit to, I think one witness testified up to 7 hours of an examination. Nobody would make somebody, no, you have to sit through 7 hours. That's the last part, is the evidence collection. Nobody would ever do that, correct?
No, correct. I think one of the problems is that you don't know what you don't know. And if someone doesn't tell you your rights or what to expect,
Sure.
then you're kind of floundering around and you don't know what to expect.
But to be fair, you testified that the complainant in this case had already made her mind up. You didn't even get to explain any of that. Fair?
That is fair. And sometimes that's what happens when you have just gone through a trauma.
And are you aware of Sergeant Sparrenberg? Explain that test to her.
No, I do not know that name.
Okay.
So do not believe I was present. If he was present or she was present and
Okay.
had that conversation, and so I can't testify to that.
You don't know who Sergeant Sparrenberg is?
No, I do not.
You testified about I think for you, it was 33%. The statewide statistic was 35%.
Yes, that was what was given to us in February of this year.
And those are DNA swabs that were submitted to DPS that contained, so there is, anytime DNA is collected, it's presumptively positive for the victim or the survivor, whoever would be
Yeah,
submitting.
I don't know if it's presumptively
Hold on.
positive. Okay,
So it is presumptively positive for the patient who is submitting, because of course their DNA is going to be
correct.
represented.
Hold on, one at a time, please.
Okay, sorry.
And typically it's looking for the presence of another profile. Fair?
Yes,
And so I think what you're testifying to try and be a little bit more precise, is that 35% of those submitted samples on a statewide average would contain another profile. Is that fair?
yes, that is the information we were given.
And you are aware that there are, or do you believe that there are instances of false allegations of sexual assault?
Yes, I do believe that.
Okay. And so if we accept that as kind of a given truth, as kind of a maxim, if you want to call it that, then certainly instances where there is a false allegation of sexual assault, that could be a potential explanation for why there is not another profile present in those samples that are submitted to DPS. Is that fair? That there wasn't a profile there to begin with, because the allegation was fabricated.
That's a possibility.
Okay, that the allegation was hallucinated. Fair?
That's a possibility.
Because of prescription medication or non-prescription, street drugs or something like that. Is that fair?
That's a possibility.
Okay. So there's lots of explanations why that 35% number would be reflected on a statewide average. Is that fair?
That is the yes, the possibility.
In that process of collecting a DNA, a swab, that takes just seconds to do. Is that fair?
It swabs from where?
What's that?
Swabs from where?
From anywhere.
Not necessarily seconds, no.
Less than a minute?
In order to do a speculum exam, it takes probably longer than a minute.
An external genitalia swab, would that have taken,
That would have taken seconds.
okay, not 7 hours?
No,
Certainly not. Fair?
correct, but we would still have had to have a consent form. There are still steps that we have to do. So it's not 1 second just to do one swab. We would still have to go through other steps in order to do that one swab.
Sure. But taking the test, that would take just seconds.
Oh, I don't know about performing the actual DNA test. We do not do that.
Collecting the sample that has the potential to contain another DNA sample, that takes just seconds.
Correct.
I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
Hey,
Does a same exam always show if sex has happened?
No.
Last witness.
that's,
Nothing further, Your Honor.
is witness be released?
Yes, Judge.
No objection.
Thank you, ma'am. You're free to go about your business. At this point, we'll take our afternoon break. Remember my instructions, and we'll be back and ready to go at 3:35. Thank you.
All right, for the jury.
Anything we need to take up on the record?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you.
Nothing less.
Was that?
Nothing to say.
Here. How many more witnesses do I have?
One should be short. Both should be short.
Sure.
It's really a big challenge.
Was there anything different from last time?
No, Your Honor.
I'll go get it and print it out.
Yeah.
For y'all. Do you have any witnesses? Mr. Parker, sounds like we're gonna need them today.
We have their present report, Your Honor.
Okay, very good.
I don't see any reason why it'd be different this time.
I don't know why it printed like that either.
No, I mean the charge itself, the content.
Oh, yeah,
No, yeah, this,
yeah, I don't either, but maybe the. Okay, I'll look at it.
In Judge to the court's request, there is a witness out in the hallway, defense witness out in the hallway. Do you bring him in so he can be sworn?
I don't think, I want you to tell him not to talk to anyone about the case. You're just talking about for the rule.
No, but if the court would be inclined to swear.
You want me to swear him in?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay,
If we could.
okay, bring him in.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor.
Yep. Come on up here. How you doing, sir? Good. Ruby, can we go on the record, please? Ready. How you doing? Can you please identify yourself for the record?
My name is Chris Tankersley,
Spell that for our court reporter.
CHRISTANKERSLEY.
I understand that you're a witness called for your case, is that right?
I was pleaded, yes, sir.
Okay, so a couple of things. One, the rule has been invoked. So what that means is that you cannot talk about this case with anyone except for the attorneys on either side. You can talk to them if they speak to you. But as far as the facts of the case, you cannot speak to anyone going forward by doing so that community is qualified to testify. Understood?
Understood.
Okay, and now you're under the court's, now that you're here, you need to stay here. You're not going anywhere. Because if you do, you would have to send someone out to find you and bring you back. Understand? So stick around. That's what I'm asking you to do. And I think we're gonna get you here. I'll be 30 days out.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Ready? Get your witness coming in.
All rise for the jury.
You may be seated. State, please call your next witness.
thank you, Your Honor. State calls Rebecca Brown.
Please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Please have a seat. And adjust yourself at the chair close to that microphone, just so that everyone can hear you. It's good to be about a fist apart from the microphone. And it'll get taller. There we go. Let's try it out. Tell us your name and spell it for the court reporter.
My name is Becca Brown, BECCA, Brown, BROW.
State.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Rebecca. How are you?
I'm good.
All right, we're just gonna dive right in. How do you know Chris Ellis?
I met Chris in college in one of my classes, and we hit it off pretty quickly. We hang out and go out together and stuff.
Okay. On September 28th of 2019, how long had you known her?
The beginning of the semester,
And do you remember about when that started?
like first day of class, like that was really why I thought, yeah.
I mean, school typically starts in August.
Yeah,
Okay. And at that time, by end of September, would you say you guys were pretty good friends?
oh, yes.
Have you guys kept in touch?
Yeah, Instagram, stuff like that.
How did you know Nicholas Smith?
He was Chris's boyfriend.
Okay, and how long had you known him?
I guess when I started dating, I don't really know how we did it.
Okay, but you knew Chris first and then met Nick through her.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And did you know Lincoln Pearson?
No, not until, Nick introduced us.
And when was that?
I don't know the date.
Okay, but the day we're talking about.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, the day you guys went to Craft House.
Yes,
Okay, so September 28th, 2019, sound right?
yes.
So at that time, you were not living in the same apartment complex as Chris.
Yeah, no.
Where were you living?
I was living at Dakota Ranch Apartments.
Okay, how far away was that from the retreat?
Oh, it was down the street.
Okay. And so on that day, you guys went to Craft House. Do you remember about what time you got there?
I think morning.
Okay. Do you remember, well, who did you meet there?
Well, and then Lincoln and Chris and Nick, they were drinking.
Okay. Were they already there when you got there?
Yes,
And they were already drinking alcohol?
yes,
Okay. Did you join in?
yes.
Okay. Do you remember how you got there?
I drove.
Okay. When you guys all left, do you remember how you guys left Craft House?
We all got into someone's car. I don't know whose car it was.
And where did you go?
We went to a gas station and picked up more alcohol,
And then where?
and then we went to the retreat.
And why?
Just drink more and swim.
Okay. And was that the destination you had a good pool?
Yeah, it's a nice thing.
How would you describe, just from when you got to Craft House to when you got to the pool, in general, that segment of time?
It was fun, we were all laughing, having a good time, there's no tension, no nothing, we were just all hanging out, having a good time.
Okay. And back then, were you on Snapchat a lot?
Yes.
Okay. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, no, I took a couple of Snapchat videos of us just hanging out at the pool and, one in the car, and it was fine, we we're just hanging out.
Okay. Did you tend to snap a lot of stuff in your life at that time?
Oh, yeah, I would like Snapchat everything and send it to people, yeah.
And what is the point of Snapchat?
Just keeping up with your friends and stuff like that. Back then, I would just Snapchat people more than I would call or text, just constant life updates that, you don't need to text someone.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when you snap things, can you send them to a whole group of people or just single people?
Yeah, you can send them to groups, you can send them to single people, yeah.
And so that day, so you took a couple snaps of us hanging out. What did you do with those? Like, were they saved? Were they posted somewhere? How did that work?
I saved them. I think one of them I sent to one of my friends at the time. Yeah,
Okay.
so I saved them.
And to save something on Snapchat, you actually have to do something.
Yeah, you have to like click the save button and then it'll save to like your camera roll. And then you always have that memory to like look back on.
Okay. Do you remember why you saved these particular snaps?
No, I do not.
But at some point, then you were asked for them and turned them in for this case.
Yes.
Okay. May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yeah.
I'm going to show you what I've marked as State's Exhibits 7 and 8. Do you recognize these discs?
Yes,
And have you reviewed the contents of these discs?
yes,
Okay, starting first with State 7. Is this a Snapchat that you took with Carissa in the backseat of a car?
yes,
And State 8, is this a Snapchat that you took of everyone hanging out at the pool that day?
yes.
Right. This time, Your Honor, I'd offer State 7 and 8.
No objection, Judge.
States Exhibit 7 and 8 are admitted.
Thank you. And may we publish State 7 at this time?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you remember the things that we heard you guys say? You have any idea what that was about?
No, I have no idea.
Okay, and there at the very end, we see a face in the front seat, is that the defendant in this case? Yes. Fair to say at that point, everyone's having a good time.
Oh, yeah.
I think we see maybe a vape in your hand.
Yeah,
What kind of vape was that?
nicotine, it's a jewel.
Okay. As far as you know, nothing besides alcohol being consumed.
Oh, yeah, it was just alcohol.
Okay. And once you guys got back to the pool, did this kind of same general attitude continue?
Yes.
Okay. May we publish state's aid at this time, Your Honor?
You may.
Black, I got white, what you want? Take that white ball, yeah, yeah. Let me cue this shit over there, stop it! Stop! Fuck off, bitch.
All right. At that point in time, with this video, do you think, when Nick kind of saw you there at the end, was he actually being angry?
No, I don't think so.
Was this kind of the general mood when you guys were at the pool?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
And we see Nick and Krista there, together in the pool. That day, did she show any interest in anyone else?
No,
At some point, did you leave?
yes.
Do you remember why?
Yeah, we all drank a little too much and Chris and Nick got into like some little fight or something, and that was my time to go home.
Okay. Did the fight seem like a big deal?
Not a huge deal, just like a couple fight,
Okay.
yeah.
But kind of, and do you remember it starting to rain?
I think it was cloudy.
Okay, that's fine. But at some point, basically, you're just like, I'm done.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, that's fine.
How did you get home?
I would move home.
I'm sorry.
Home, Uber?
Okay, okay. At any point in the day, from when you showed up at Craft House till you left the pool, did you ever see any sort of romantic interaction or interest at all on the part of Krista towards the defendant in this case?
No, not at all.
Okay. Did you see any romantic intentions on his part towards her?
No, not at all.
And everyone knew that Nick and Krista were together.
Yes.
What was your impression of the defendant that day?
Just a typical frat guy.
Okay. What does that mean?
I guess just, big ego, maybe, can drink a lot. Maybe douchey a little bit.
Okay. And is that the only day you ever interacted with him?
Yes,
After you left the pool, did you hear from Krista again that day?
yes, she FaceTimed me later that day.
Okay, what was her demeanor like?
Hysteric, crying, freaking out, distraught.
Do you remember what time it was?
No.
Okay, sometime after you had left.
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember it was still daylight out?
No, I don't remember.
Okay. Had you ever seen her like that before?
No.
Okay. What did she say to you?
She told me that, Lincoln had sex with her and she didn't really
Objection, that calls for your judge. No, it's an excited utterance given the demeanor of the victim at the time. You can answer.
Okay, she just said that Lincoln had sex with her and she was, or raped her and she, wanted to leave and get out of the house and she wanted to just get away.
Okay. Do you remember, did she use the word rape?
Yes,
Did she ask you to come get her?
yes,
Okay, and did you?
yes.
Okay. When you got there, Was her demeanor still the same?
Yes,
Okay. And do you recall where you found her? Was she in her apartment, outside her apartment? Do you remember?
I think she was outside with like Nick and like one of the roommates.
Okay. Do you recall anything else about her demeanor or her bearing at that time?
She was holding herself, she, shaking, she was panicking,
Okay. And where did she want you to take her?
to an ER.
And why?
She was scared that she could have like contracted like a disease or something.
An STD?
Yes,
Okay. And did you then try to take her to the hospital?
yes.
Okay, did you guys have a little bit of difficulty finding one?
Yes, we went to one and then I think we went to two, I think, yeah.
And ultimately you ended somewhere, that was open and I guess you could see you guys.
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember waiting with Carissa for a while?
Yes, we waited for a long time.
Okay, do you remember how long?
I don't, it all blurred together.
At some point, while you guys were there waiting, you saw a police officer.
Yes.
Okay, without saying what people said, do you remember, if Carissa was wanting to talk to him at first?
I think she would.
Okay. Do you remember the details from that interaction
When I was talking to the officer,
before that, when it was just you and Nick and Carissa and you first saw the officer and we're kind of discussing about if you should talk to him?
no, I don't remember anything, any details, so,
Do you remember that, even having a discussion about whether or not you guys should talk to the officer?
no.
That's fine, that's fine. But ultimately, you guys, all three of you did speak to that officer.
Yes.
Do you remember if Carissa did in fact stay at the hospital that night to get tested?
No, I don't think she got tested, we all just sort of left.
Okay,
Yeah,
by the time you left,
Mhm.
can you even estimate how long you had been there?
I have no idea.
Can you tell us minutes versus hours?
3 hours?
And I don't need you to guess, I mean, if you don't remember, that is completely fine.
Okay.
Just a little time or a long time,
It was a long time.
okay. What was Chris's demeanor like at the hospital?
Just very zoned out, just, I don't know, just a traumatized, I guess.
Okay. Did anything else happen that night?
Yeah, when we left, she like threw up a lot afterwards, and I just from there, it was sort of just what happened.
After that day, did you continue to be friends with Carissa?
Yes,
Okay, did you see changes in her?
a little more reserved, I wanna say, when we go out, she'd be a little more quiet, a little more less drinking a lot, yeah.
Pass the witness, Chair.
That's,
Thank you, Judge. Hi, Becca.
Hi.
Going back to, you didn't live with Carissa Milan.
Yeah, no, I saw it.
Okay, how often were you over at their apartment?
A couple times, I'd say it was over like 7, 8 times.
In a relatively short time that you knew all of them, right?
Yeah.
And you met them at Craft House later that morning,
Mhm.
and y'all drank a couple pitchers of mimosas.
Yes, mimosas, we took some shots as well.
Okay. Was everyone drinking at relatively the same pace?
I don't know.
Okay, it doesn't stand out in your memory that one person is way drunker than somebody else.
No,
Had you seen Carissa drunk before?
yes,
How you saw her that day, was it before everything, was it relatively the same drunk Carissa?
yes.
And going back to the video of y'all on the way to the liquor store, who's driving that car?
I don't remember.
Those Snapchats. Did you send those to a detective?
No,
Did a detective ever reach out to you?
for the Snapchats?
Ever?
About the case a couple times.
Did you ever mention to them you had the Snapchats?
No,
You sent those to the district attorney's office?
no, I didn't send them.
Who did, or how did those videos end up here?
Oh, I was sitting, and I brought them up and I told them about the Snapchats.
Okay, and that was earlier this year, right?
Yes,
It wasn't back in 2019 that you sent those videos to somebody?
yeah,
And everybody was out drinking by the pool, right?
yes,
Were y'all the only ones at the pool?
I do not remember.
Okay. Was it, do you remember if it was hot that day?
Yes, it was hot.
Good swimming weather?
Mm-hmm.
You don't remember it being cold or something?
No,
And everybody was generally in a good mood for a bit.
yes,
And then Nick and Chris had got into a fight.
yes,
Were they yelling at each other?
yes,
Were there curse words said at each other?
I do not remember that.
But you said there was yelling at each other.
Yes,
Do you remember what the fight was about?
I honestly don't remember what it was about.
But it could have seemed like a big deal at the moment.
At the moment, yeah,
And then you decided to go home because you're over it.
yes.
Do you know how long you were home before you came back to the retreat?
I do not remember.
Did you say it was closer to 15 minutes or an hour?
Oh, an hour.
And y'all went back to your apartment.
Yes,
Did y'all discuss calling 911?
we discussed on what she wanted to do, and she wanted to go straight to the ER.
Okay.
Yeah.
But did y'all discuss calling 911?
I do not remember us discussing about 911.
Okay. You previously testified in a hearing for this case, correct?
Yes,
Would looking at a transcript of that hearing refresh your memory to what you testified to?
yes,
May I approach the witness, Judge?
Man,
I'm just gonna show you a short snippet of that transcript. Just read it to yourself. Don't read it out loud. Okay. Do you remember if y'all discussed calling the police?
I guess I said I did, yeah,
Okay. So you previously testified under oath that you discussed calling the police,
yes,
but y'all didn't call the police that day.
we did not,
Because her main focus was to get STD tested.
yes,
And you stayed at the hospital for what you said, a couple hours.
yes,
You weren't there when she was talking with the officer,
mhm,
giving her story. Correct?
correct,
Sorry. Y'all eventually left the hospital,
yes,
and y'all left because everyone was tired.
yes,
You said she threw up when y'all left the hospital.
yes,
Could that have been from the alcohol?
I do not know.
No further questions, Judge. I pass the witness.
state,
Nothing further, Your Honor.
and this witness be released?
Yes.
Defense?
No objection, Judge.
Thank you, ma'am. You're free to go about your business. State, call your next witness.
Thank you, Honor. State calls Thomas Davidson.
Raise your right hand for me. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I swear.
Please have a seat. And if you would, just adjust yourself close to that microphone so it picks up everything you're saying. If you would, tell us your name and spell it for the court reporter.
My name is Travis Davidson, TravisDavidson.
State.
Thank you, Your Honor. All right, good afternoon. How are you today?
Good, thank you.
How are you presently employed?
I am employed full-time at the San Marcos Police Department.
Okay, and what is your current position?
I am currently a detective assigned to the Criminal Investigation Division.
Okay, how long have you been in law enforcement?
I started in October of 2013,
So that's about 11 years now.
almost, it's next month.
And how long have you been in criminal investigations?
I became a detective in September of 2018, so that's just over 6 years.
So 6 years ago from now and about a year prior to the incident we're here to talk about.
Yes,
Okay. As a detective, do you get assigned to a particular area?
yes, when you join the division, you're assigned to either crimes against persons or crimes against property.
And what was your assignment?
At the time of this case, I was assigned to crimes against persons.
Okay, and how long did you do that for?
I did that for 2-ish to 3-ish years, and I've just recently, in the last 2 years, joined the Special Investigations Division.
And what is a special investigations division?
We focus mainly on violent type crime with weapons, offenses, stuff like that.
Over the course of your 6 years as a detective, how many sex assault investigations would you say you worked on?
It's hard to put an exact number to that, but I would say it was a normal part of my job routine back in that time. Worked infrequently, I would say maybe anywhere between 30 and 50.
Okay. And at the time of this offense in September of 2019, do you know how many sex assault investigations you'd had?
I do not. I was within about 1 year becoming a detective, so again, that was part of my routine. But I would say probably 10 to 15 at that point.
Okay. And is every sexual assault investigation the same?
No.
What kind of training do you have to go through to become a police officer?
At first, you have to attend the basic police officer academy, which is they have a bunch of classes that are mandated for every person going through the academy. That basically teaches you anything from the penal code to the law or CCP, which is Code of Criminal Procedures.
Okay. And then you have ongoing training every year to maintain your peace officer certification.
That is correct.
Okay. Have you maintained and kept up with all of that?
Yes.
Okay. Specifically to become a detective, do you have to have specialized training?
Yes, they send you to a new detective class as soon as you're selected, and you're going back to that division. And it's generally starts about 40 hours of training, and then the rest of it is kind of on-the-job training for them.
Okay. And then once you're a detective, do you focus your continuing education on things that are relevant to investigations?
I do. You're allowed to kind of pick and choose as you wish. There are some like legal updates and things that all the officers have to go through. But I personally try to pick things that are relevant to my current assignment.
Okay. And so back in 2019, when you were assigned to crimes against persons, what kind of trainings would you have gone to or looked for or focused on?
I had the basic detective class. I also took several different interview type classes, statement analysis, things that would focus mainly on interacting with people.
Okay. And as just law enforcement in general, would you say a good part of your job is interacting with people?
Yes.
And so in addition to the training you receive just doing your job, are you constantly putting those skills into work?
Yes.
So let's talk about at SMPD, how do cases land on your desk as a detective?
Currently, we have a different system that's in play now than it was back in 2019, but you get notified that you have a new case assignment and you kind of have to triage. Because at the time, you're not just getting one or two, sometimes it's 3 or 4 in a week, and you begin working as soon as you get it.
Okay, so let's talk about back in 2019, once a report is taken by a patrol officer, how would it come to you as a detective?
I would just get assigned the case from my sergeant, my supervisor at the time.
And do you remember, like, would you get an email or with a physical file land on your desk?
At this time, it was a physical file. It was a folder that you would get that would have the initial officer's reports. It would have like a call for service sheet that would indicate the time, date of the offense, where it occurred, and the people that were involved.
Okay, so this case specifically, I've asked you to go back and look at one point about why there was a delay in it landing on your desk. Is that right?
You did ask me that before, and I do not know the answer to that. I have no idea.
Okay, and how long did it take to land on your desk?
I got assigned this case in January of 2020. The incident actually happened September 28th, I believe, of 2019. So it's a little over 100 days.
Okay, is that abnormal?
That is.
Okay, is that what we like to see happen in cases like this?
No,
Okay, but we don't have any explanation for it in this case.
I do not, and I can't explain it, and the only thing I could do at that point was work as soon as I got it.
And did you do that?
Yes.
Okay, does every case that lands on your desk need the same level of investigation?
No, every case is different.
Okay, and so when a case lands on your desk, I started working it immediately. What do you first do to determine what you need to do?
Again, it depends kind of on the case. Like you usually would read the initial report by the officer, see what's been done, see what the holes are in the investigation, see what still needs to be done, or any evidence that might need to be sought for. You just kind of basically looking for the missing puzzle pieces that have not been done by the first officer.
Okay, and so say when this case landed on your desk and you see that there is a report from a patrol sergeant, you have a body cam interview of 3 of your witnesses, including your complaining witness or your victim. And you see that she declined to have a SANE exam done at the hospital. From your knowledge, experience, and training at this point, what is there for you to do?
After reading the initial report, the really big missing puzzle piece I saw in here was that one of the witnesses had not been interviewed yet.
And who is that?
That was Milan.
Okay, and based on your review of the case file as it was, did you feel like the witnesses, Nick Smith and Becca Brown, needed to be re-interviewed?
No.
Okay, based on the interview of the victim, did you think that there were holes there that needed to be filled in?
No, I didn't get a chance to review the officer's body cam, but from reading the report, I didn't have any big questions that came to mind after reading his report that needed to be clarified. His report was pretty detailed in the exact events that happened.
Okay, is it standard that you would often watch the body cam of the reporting officer?
It's a kind of preference for detective, but me personally, I very rarely do. Now, if you read the report and there's a discrepancy, or there's something glaring at you from that doesn't make sense, at that point, you might go back and see exactly what's going on. The only problem with that is it is kind of time consuming. So mostly, at least me, rely on the officer's report to be accurate.
And that's part of just trying to get through as many of your cases as you can. while
Right,
reading them.
right. There's never time that you're not working on a case. If it was one of those things where you worked one from start to finish, and that was all you had, that would be great. That's not the reality back there.
And so you called Milan and talked to her. Okay, did you also call the victim in the case?
I did. I called her first just to introduce myself and let her know I could assign the case.
Okay, and then did you end up talking about the events as well?
I ran her through the events briefly on the phone as well.
What's the purpose of that?
One, to make sure she knew who I was, 2, to make sure I was kind of talking to the right person, make sure nothing had changed. There had been a delay, so almost 100 days have changed. So I just want to make sure her memory didn't get jogged, unjogged, maybe she remembers something that wasn't said at first.
And if she had said something different to you on the phone, or if she couldn't remember things she had said, would you have had her come in for a more formal interview, or what would you have done at that time?
Again, it kind of depends on the case. If I had some questions and I didn't get a good feel for it from reading the report, I might ask her to come in. The problem is, I didn't really want to re-traumatize her from reliving any of those events, so the least bit of interview that I could do with her is what I was trying to do.
And is that a lot because she'd already given a very full interview?
Yeah, I believe that there was a lot of details listed and that she provided to Sergeant Spartanburg.
Okay. And typically in a sex assault case, besides making sure you have interviews of all the witnesses involved, what else would you typically do?
You may look for some sort of physical evidence, whether that be a safe exam or if there's bedding. There's a lot of variables that depend on the actual case. Was there a condom used? Was there other things that I need to be looking out for?
Okay, and based on your review of the case, the information that you gathered from everybody's statements, did you determine that there would have been useful physical evidence in collecting, say, Chris's bedding?
No, due to the delay and also the fact that she had moved out of that apartment, what she told me when I first talked to her the day it was assigned, or the first thing I did in the case, I did not believe that would be helpful at all.
Okay, so by the time the case actually landed on your desk, that's just, the time has gone too far.
That's correct.
Okay, based on your review of everything and everyone's statements, did you believe that if her bedding had been collected the night she reported the sex assault, that there would have been useful evidence?
There could have been, that might have been something that could have been gathered if it was done that same night. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure other than that.
Have you worked cases where you have collected bedding or clothing and gotten no evidence from them?
I have.
I assume you've also collected bedding and clothing and gotten useful evidence.
Yes, that's correct.
In a sexual assault case, if there isn't evidence that of ejaculation, is it very hard to find biological materials?
It could be, yes.
In your course of your career working sex assault cases, how often would you say you actually have a safe kit and evidence?
That's a hard question to answer. It's completely dependent on the victim because it is a very intrusive process. It is completely up to what they're willing to do and how much they're willing to go to achieve such evidence.
Okay, is it common not to have one?
It's pretty common both ways.
Okay, and in your cases where you did have that sane or that safe kit, did you always get DNA from them?
No, not always.
Was there any other evidence you could think of at the time that could potentially have produced any useful evidence?
Not at that point with the time delay of the case.
Now, having, 5 more years of experience and looking back with hindsight, is there anything you would have done differently?
No,
Is this just one of those cases where there wasn't a lot for you to do?
there was not many tasks to be completed that were not done by the initial officer.
Did you go to the apartment where it happened?
I did not.
How come?
Like I said, the very first thing I did when I got assigned that case was talk to the victim. She told me she had moved out. And I understand that it's possible for other roommates to still be there. I just didn't want to go over there, look at the scene, and maybe even get into the bedroom that happened at if she no longer lived there.
Okay. Typically in investigations, do you guys always try to talk to the suspect?
Yes.
And why is that?
Different perspectives. There's two sides to every story. Maybe you could explain why things happen. I always try.
Okay, do they have to talk to you?
No.
Okay, and so when you start that process, I'm gonna contact my suspect and see if they're willing to talk to me. Do you just show up at their job or at their home and see if they wanna talk to you?
You can do that. I generally don't. I'll try. Safety allowing me to. As a dangerous person, I may not be able to do that, but I'm always trying to set up something over the phone.
And so if you make that initial phone call and they don't want to come talk to you, is that the end of it?
Yeah, there's not much else I can do. I can't force anybody to talk to me.
Okay. When you reached out to Milan, did you set up an in-person meeting with her?
I did not, when I first talked to her, she seemed kind of hesitant to get involved because she knew all the parties. And so I kind of put her in an awkward spot. So because of that, I didn't push more than my phone.
Okay. And the same with Nick.
Yeah, that's great. But since Nick had been interviewed by, Sergeant Schwarzburger, sorry, in person, I didn't feel like I would either.
Okay. When you spoke with Milan, did you actually request that she send you the recording she had made?
She mentioned she may possibly still have a voice memo, and I asked her if she had that to please send it to me, provided my police department's cell phone number too.
But when you spoke to her, did you have the impression she wasn't sure if she still had it?
Yeah, she said she believed she still had it. She had to check. When I was talking to her, she said she was still driving, so she was able to check when I was interviewing her.
Okay. And you never actually received anything from her?
I never received anything from her.
Okay. Is it pretty common for people to forget to send things to the police?
Yeah,
Is that, I guess, one thing you could have done differently was follow up with her on that?
yes, I could have followed up with her.
Do you remember why you didn't?
I think the case was just moving quickly and I wanted to get to the rest of the tasks that needed to be covered. I could have called her again and asked her about it, but I kind of left it in her court. Like, if she had it, the instructions were pretty clear. He gets it to me here by number. That's what it bill.
Okay. And did you reach out to Lincoln Pearson?
Yes.
Okay. Was that a phone call?
Yes.
And did you actually connect over the phone?
Yes.
Okay. What number did you call for him?
I cannot recall the number off the top of my head.
Do you have your report there with you?
I do not.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. Would you have gotten the phone number from the information that Sergeant Sparrenberg inputted into the report?
I got the phone number from the information Sergeant Farmer inputted, and also I had Nicholas Smith verify that I reported when I talked to him on the phone.
So you knew that the number you were calling was the number for it?
Yes.
Okay. And did you have to actually leave a voicemail the first time?
I did.
Okay. Do you remember if there was a name on the voicemail?
The voicemail did include, this is Lincoln Pearson.
Okay. And did he call you back?
He did.
And did he call you back from that same number?
He did.
And did he identify himself as Lincoln Pearson?
Yes.
Okay. May I first witness, Your Honor?
Okay.
Please show what I've marked as states 9. This appear to be a disc of the defendant's interview.
Yes.
And since that time, have you had an opportunity to review this short interview on the phone with the defendant?
I have.
And is it a true and correct copy of the call you had with him?
Yes.
This time, Your Honor, I offer states 9. No objection, Judge.
So exhibit 9 is admitted.
By the time you have this call we're about to listen to, you've already spoken with both Carissa and Nick.
That is correct.
Okay. And were you aware that Nick and Lincoln had basically stopped being friends on September 28th, 2019?
Yes.
Okay.
I will be here for the third, second.
Detective Wilson. Yes, this is Wyndham. Everybody, how you doing today? Good, I'm good, and I appreciate you calling back so quick. So that's my personal paradigm, but if you have a case with something like that that has your name on it, I don't like to have too much information on the phone, because you never really know who you're fully talking to. But I can't provide you with some information. I was just really hoping to One of my jobs is to remain unbiased, so I'm kind of, hopes I can get you what kind of side of the story of this thing. Do you have any idea what this might be about before I say anything?
No idea, I don't live in San Marcos anymore.
Okay, this is regarding, I guess, one of your old best friend's girlfriends? That ring a bell?
No.
Do you remember a Carissa Ellis?
Yeah, what's the name, is it their dating name?
Yes, Nicholas Smith.
Oh, okay, yeah.
This is stuff that happened over at the retreat apartments back in, September of last year.
Remember last year.
I guess there was a time that he came down to visit Nick during one of the days. And some stuff had happened, but like I said, I don't want to go into too much detail over the phone, but I just kind of want to give you kind of what it's concerning. Any of that ring a bell on anything?
Not really,
Well, oh, go ahead.
no, you're good with that.
To be frank with you, man, this case is, it's an allegation of sexual assault.
What?
So that's what the case is concerning. And like I said, I would really like to get your side of the story, because believe me, I understand that there are two sides to every single story. So I wouldn't be doing my job unless I tried to get that and see how it's different and, you know.
Okay, I'm doing 60-hour work weeks right now on my job. I'm not at work right now. I'm an accountant.
Okay.
So I'm not available really right now to discuss this.
When would be a good time for you? Like what are usually your days off?
Weekends.
Do you have weekends off?
Yeah.
Like I said, man, I'm willing to work with you. So if it's something that, if you can only make it on the weekend, as long as you tell me which day, I can make it happen. And, I just, like I said, I don't want to go off of just one side of the story here, because it kind of paints a picture one way, but I would really like to kind of hear what happened from your perspective on things.
Okay, yeah, can I give you a call back later, this number or what?
Yeah, this is my desk number, so it'll go directly to me. So at any time, like, if this weekend works for you, let me know and I'll make it happen.
Okay, I am gonna be going out of town the next 3 weeks to Midland, Texas, and like I said, I'm not there, and I'm flying out there, so.
Okay, so are you going to be here out during the weekend?
No, I will be flying up Sunday, I said my visit this weekend, because I have a daughter.
I got you. Well, it's one of those things that it shouldn't take too long, but I would just, it's all concerning one day. Do you remember a day back in September when you went over there to the retreat?
I'm not exactly sure, I used to hang out with that friend a lot, so I can't narrow it down to one day.
It's probably the last time you ever hung out with him.
Yeah, I don't know, I'll give you a call back.
Okay, so you don't remember any of that?
What's that?
You don't remember anything of what I'm talking about? Is this a complete shocker?
No, I remember getting into an argument, I don't remember anything about assault.
And that's why it's so important that I do talk to you about this sort of thing, and I would hate, I can tell you right now, man, a lot of times what people do is they hang up and they don't ever call me back and they don't want to talk about this sort of thing, and it's not a trick. I haven't warrant for your arrest or anything like that. I would just really like to come here and have you come in and talk to me. That's all it is.
Yeah.
So I don't want you to sit here and think like you're gonna hang up and it's like I'm trying to tap you. It's nothing like that. I'm really just trying to see kind of what happened to your eye.
Yeah, I understand. I'm like I said, I'm really in my work right now.
Okay, yeah, well, I appreciate you calling back. And whatever you figure it out, if you need to meet up sometime this weekend, then let me know and I'll see if I can make it happen.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, man, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Right. Did he ever come in for that face-to-face interview?
No, you did not.
Okay. Did you find anything about this interview odd?
It seemed a little dodgy. First concern was people work 60-hour work weeks. Didn't quite seem super surprised at what the allegation was and the fact that you would remember the last big argument you had with his best friend.
Okay. Without being face-to-face with someone, are you able to decide if you think they're being truthful with you?
No, not always. There's other things that could come into play if you're sitting in front of a person, body language and things.
Okay. Where did you get any indications from this call that he wasn't being truthful with you?
It's hard to tell over the phone, other than just what I just said. It's some honest statements, but it's hard to tell if it was truthful or deceitful.
What else was there to do on this case?
That was the missing piece, is talking along and trying to get a link inside the store.
Pass the witness, Your Honor.
Yes,
Hi, Detective Davidson.
Hello.
At this point in September 2019, you said you'd been a detective for about a year.
Yes, that's correct.
And you talked about this wasn't your first sexual assault investigation.
No.
And you'd investigated how many at that time?
But like I said, it's hard to put an exact number, especially with a specific type of offense. But at that time, I would say maybe between 10 and 15 sexual assaults. It could be a little bit more than that.
Right, but you had investigated a lot of other cases at that point, right?
Yes.
What's the goal of an investigation?
That's a little difficult to answer. Maybe uncover all the facts, determine the truth.
Okay. Do you take something at its word, or do you try to confirm and verify things?
I mean, you always try to verify what's verifiable.
Would you agree that it's best practice to be a fair and neutral gatherer of facts when you're investigating a case?
I always try to be fair and neutral and unbiased at the beginning until things start pointing a certain direction, and then it's at least me, I can speak for myself, I like to tailor the investigation if there's things leading me a certain way.
Would you agree it's still important to keep an open mind?
Yes,
Because you never know what wouldn't be pointing in that direction, right?
I'm not sure I understand that.
What's tunnel vision?
Tunnel vision is when you get focused on one thing that might be right in front of you as opposed to the big picture.
Why is the big picture important?
Because there are, that's kind of hard to answer, but there's, the big picture is important because it tells the entire story.
The entire story is important.
Yes,
Would you agree it's just important to figure out if someone is innocent versus if somebody actually committed a crime?
yes.
When did you make a determination of what you believed occurred in this case?
I made the final determination of what I believe occurred in the case after doing all the tests that I just testified to.
Okay. Did you look at everything?
I looked at the facts based on the initial officer's investigation and then what I did as follow-up.
Did you review all the evidence before you made your determination?
If you're referring to the body cam of the Sergeant Schwarzburger, I did not review his body cam.
You didn't review the interview with the complaining witness before you made a determination of what you believed happened in this case?
No, and that's relatively common.
Okay, we'll talk about interviewing somebody in person. Why is that important?
Like I mentioned before, you have some nonverbal cues, some nervous tics that might come above when you're talking to these people. There's just extra things that can come into play.
Okay, so if you didn't review the video of the complaining witness making her statement, how did you get to verify those things?
I don't need to verify other officers' investigation. I have a lot of faith in Sergeant Schwarzburger. I know he interviewed her in person along with the other two, so that's what I was relying on.
Okay, so you just take his report at its word.
I take all of the facts that he put into the report at his word, yes. I have a lot of faith in his investigations.
Come back to that. To this day, have you reviewed the complaining witness's original statement to officers or Sergeant Schwarzburger?
I have reviewed the written statement that was uploaded, but I have not reviewed the body cam.
Haven't reviewed the complaining witness's original statement to Detective or Sergeant Schwarzburger.
I'm not sure how many times I repeat that. I have not, and I still never reviewed the body cam from Sergeant Schwarzburger.
But that would have been available to you if you wanted to review it.
Yes, sir.
You were assigned this case on January 9th, 2020, correct?
Yes,
And the alleged incident happened on September 28th, 2019, correct?
that is correct.
Remind me how a case gets assigned to you.
I don't know if I can go into like all the, how everything works with it, but I get notified at that point in time, I would get notified that I got a case by getting physical folder that contained all the report and the initial information.
So a physical file appears on your desk, and that's how a case is assigned to you.
Yes, at this time, it's different now at the time of this.
What's different now?
It's all virtual digital. You get a little bell that indicates you have a notification, and you can review the case that way.
Okay, does San Marcos Police Department have a record management system?
Yes,
Did they at that point?
yes,
So there is a record management system.
yes.
What is included in that record management system?
The initial call for service detail, it's got the officer's report. It's just at that date and time, they would just print it all out for you and bring it to your desk, and you'd have the layout of the initial report. It was digital still, but they would provide it for you in like a physical folder at that time.
If somebody called in to check up on a case, would it be in that record management system?
Yes,
Do you know who specifically assigned this case to you?
Sergeant Chris Tankersley.
And they review this case and then provide it to you to determine investigation?
Yes,
Nobody investigated a single thing in this time frame from September 28th through January 9th.
yes, can't answer why, but that is correct.
This was a report of a sexual assault. Would you agree that that's a very serious allegation?
Extremely serious, very important.
And it sat on somebody's desk, not necessarily yours, but it sat on somebody's desk for 3.5 months.
That is correct.
And you say this is not normal procedure?
That wasn't very common for me at all. Usually when you get assigned a case, it's maybe a few days after it happened. So that was not normal.
Hold on.
I apologize, but this was 3.5 months later.
Yes,
And you said you looked into the case to see why it had sat somewhere.
I never asked about it. I just got it, started working at it, on it as soon as I could.
To this day, have you asked anybody why it sat somewhere?
No, I have not.
So none of us know.
I did not, I definitely do not know why it's not that long.
Okay, but you were the lead detective on this case, right?
Yes, I was the only detective assigned.
So it would have been your question to ask.
No, that's not my place. I just work things that I get to. That's completely out of my realm of responsibilities.
Does it just throw any red flags to you of why it wasn't investigated for 3.5 months?
I have questions myself. I'm not sure about the word flags on it, but like I said, I could not answer to you as to why.
What's the importance in having quick investigations? We're starting, let me rephrase that. What is the importance of investigating a case close to when the initial event happened?
I believe there's probably many reasons for that. Evidence that could be there, that could no longer be there. Memory for people remembering things, although that could work both ways. You know, people tend to remember things after a period of time, but there's probably many different answers for that.
But you'd agree it's helpful to get statements rather soon while memory's fresh.
That one would depend on the circumstance, like if you're talking about a suspect, I'd like to give the statement from them after I got everything else, and that could take a little bit of time, but in general, if you're talking about freshness of memory, I think that's a fair statement.
And you said it can go both ways. If somebody remembers something later, they can always follow back with you, right?
That's true.
You have a work cell phone, they can call you.
Yeah, that's the phone that I usually give out to people after assignment anyways.
Does the time period of when a case gets assigned to a detective vary on the type of case?
No, I don't think there's really a varying difference between type of case. I think it also, there's a lot of factors like how many cases are coming in that need to be reviewed. So I don't think it really can narrow it down between a type of case.
Okay, and you're not just investigating one case at a time, correct?
That is correct.
How do you divide your work?
You have to prioritize the things that have to be done first. That's a hard struggle.
Okay, would you agree that if a homicide comes in, you start working on that?
Homicides will usually take most of your division out of the mix for at least that day. You get as much as you can.
Would you agree that sexual assault cases are just as important as homicides?
I think that any case that comes through is just as important. They're all important. This is a felony level offense that needs to be investigated as such.
How do most sexual assault cases begin?
I'm not sure I can answer that.
Somebody gets in contact with an officer, right?
Oh, I'm sorry. I just understand that now. Yeah, usually somebody would file a report
Okay, how does somebody file a report?
a number of different ways. I mean, you could call the police department, you could go to the police department, you could stumble upon a cop if you happen to see one and ask for help. There's a number of different ways.
Would you say it's more common that somebody reaches out to law enforcement?
Common? Maybe so, yeah.
There wasn't a 911 call in this case, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, you talked about your interviewing witnesses course that you took. What was step one you learned in your interview course?
I'm not sure I know what step one is.
What's one of the big highlights you learned from that course? I apologize, that was a bad question.
What to look for in observations, and I believe what you're looking for is being unbiased.
Is it normal practice to interview witnesses over the phone?
It actually is.
Why?
It depends on the detective and the preference, but like I said, there are a lot of cases coming in, and sometimes a phone call is the easiest way to get a hold of somebody.
Is it the easiest way, or is it just quick check the box that a detective can do?
You could see it as both ways. Like for me, in this specific case, with 2 of the 3 witnesses being interviewed in person already, it was one of those things with me just checking to see if anything changed.
It's certainly the easiest way. Is that the best way to interview a witness?
It's a hard one to answer.
Why would it not be the best way?
Sometimes witnesses are willing to come forward and talk in person, might be less willing to provide information. They might be old safer over the phone.
You talked about you can learn other things about a witness when you're interviewing somebody in person, correct?
I think I was referring to like suspects, but yeah, the same thing could technically apply to anybody you're talking to.
Yeah, anybody that has information about a situation, correct?
Yes.
And it's not just all words, but you're looking at other clues such as demeanor and nonverbal clues.
That is correct.
There's also ways to see if somebody is lying, correct?
There are certain things you can look for that doesn't always apply to everybody. Sometimes you can be a better liar than another.
Yeah, but you're trained to look for those things, correct?
Yes, you don't always see them, but you are trained to look for certain things.
When you interview somebody over the phone, you can't quite see these things.
Yes, you can't see the body language things that you're talking about. You can still pick up on maybe some nervous takes or pauses or something that may not be comfortable talking about.
And there's steps. Let me rephrase that. When you're meeting with a witness in person, you can verify who they actually are.
Yes.
When you're talking to somebody on the phone, how do you confirm who they are?
Generally, I've never spoken to any person before and I've never provided any information. It would be, hey, what is your name and date of birth? I'll compare it to, if you look at the phone number that it's coming from. Sometimes it can be, like in this case, I never got the victim's name and date of birth from my initial encounter with her, but I was able to verify it was the right person based on the statement she was providing. She had the knowledge that her report was.
You just verified it was her because she knew something about the situation.
Yeah, and that was the phone number provided by her to Sergeant Schwarzburger.
Do you agree that it's well known in police work to not rely on prior interviews of intoxicated people?
I'm not sure I would agree with that.
Can you rely on an interview of somebody that's intoxicated?
Yes, sometimes you can. It depends on the level of intoxication. A lot of times they were able, and willing to give a statement that is still true and factual.
Are you able to know if somebody's intoxicated without watching the statement?
No, I would rely on the sergeant that did speak to her.
You mentioned earlier something about a condom being used. Did anyone ever ask the complaining witness that?
No, I don't believe so.
You don't know if Sergeant Schwarzburger asked her that?
I'm not sure they did.
You never brought in Carissa to come meet with you in person, correct?
I did not.
And you never watched her original statement?
No, I still have not reviewed the body cam.
Did you ask her to come in and she just couldn't?
No, I just wanted to, this is common practice. In most cases, I would get assigned, I would touch base with the victim over the phone. Like I said, in direct, if there was some big glaring thing that did not make sense, I may ask them to come in and follow up on additional facts, but I did not in this case.
And then why did you initially want to interview Milan in person?
It's hard to tell for that one. Generally speaking, me personally, I like to interview people in person. That's what I do. I always touch base with people first on the phone, but I just prefer it in person.
And you didn't interview anybody in person on this case?
No, that was only because the sergeant had already spoken to, like I said, 3 of the involved parties in person.
Did you ask anyone what Carissa and Nick were fighting about that day?
I did not. It did not seem relevant to me.
Didn't seem relevant in what they were fighting about?
It didn't seem to have any bearing on any of the elements of the offense, so no, I did not ask.
Did you even discuss the argument with anyone?
No.
Did you know that there was an argument?
Yeah, it was mentioned in the report that they were observed to be arguing at the pool.
The Sergeant Spartanburg's report that you relied on?
I'm not sure if that was a question, but yes.
Did you get Nick, Becker, and Milan to write out a statement?
I did not.
But there was one for Carissa, correct?
Yeah, again, that was based off of Sergeant Barber's interaction.
Why are written statements helpful?
They're helpful because they, again, it's a recollection of the facts that are put on the paper and signed by the witness. However, you know, everything is recorded on body cam as well, so if they need to be referred to at a later point, they can do. So I would say maybe not as important as they were 15 years ago or so.
Did you offer a victim advocate to Carissa?
I did not.
Why not?
I'm not sure if anyone was relying on things that have been done by Sergeant Barber. Sanders didn't really offer a state exam. Figured all that was talked about by Sergeant Barber.
You mentioned the phone call to Lincoln. Would you agree he sounded pretty surprised that you called him?
Yes.
Maybe caught off guard?
Not sure about caught off guard, but he definitely did not, it sounded like a surprise, the whole what kind of comment that he made.
Going back to part of your role as a detective is to gather evidence of a case.
Yes, that's a role.
And evidence can be anything from a weapon in a homicide, if there was one, to DNA, to fingerprints, anything like that.
And that and very much more. I mean, anything could be seen as evidence. So,
Lots
yes,
of things.
lots of digital evidence and a lot of things.
Some of that can include pictures
That's correct.
and videos,
Yes.
and you can go to the scene of the alleged incident.
Again, I felt like that would just confuse the entire investigation by going there, the bedroom was changed.
But it can be done.
It can be done, but if I took pictures of a bedroom that was no longer the same as when it happened, or for that matter, the person didn't live in there any longer, I felt like that would confuse.
Witnesses can draw a diagram.
Sure, they could, yeah.
You try to gather anything and everything, correct?
I tried to do what I thought was important for the case within reason, which was talk to the missing people that had not been talked to.
Okay, because evidence or the lack thereof could be used to jeopardize somebody's life.
If you're referring to the seriousness of this current charge, then yeah, this is very serious matter. Could jeopardize anybody's life.
Did you ask Carissa if she still lived at that apartment?
When I first talked to her, the first thing I did, she mentioned she no longer lives there.
Okay, did you ask her if the other roommate still lived there?
No, I did not.
Did you ask if anybody had cameras inside the apartment?
No, I did not.
Sometimes that's common for people to have security cameras, right?
Kind of common for outside, it's not, they're so common for inside.
Did you check to see if anybody had any outside cameras?
I did not check for any camera footage just due to the delay. I've never come across a retention period of more than 60 days on any camera that's been Walmart and banks.
But did you even ask them if they had cameras?
I did not rely on that. What my experience has been with reviewing camera systems.
This is a homicide. Would you have gone to go see if there was any cameras?
I would not have looked for camera footage over, not this time delay, I'm sorry. No, I've never seen a camera like this, not even banks hold footage for this long.
But maybe the retreat apartment could have had a camera.
They could have, again, they've never seen any place ever in my experience here that has footage for more than 60 days.
Okay, but you still didn't ask for it.
I did not think that that was important for me. Like I said, I had to prioritize and triage things, and that was on the very bottom of things due to the time delay.
What is a pretext phone call?
A pretext phone call, and you might have some prior knowledge of what you're looking for prior to calling somebody. Is that what you're referring to?
In a way, do you ever have complainants call the alleged suspect to kind of see if you can get anything from the suspect?
You can do that, like a one-party consent kind of thing. Do I do that? No, I don't.
But you can.
That's a possibility, yes.
Is it possible to get search warrants for cell phone records?
Oh, it's definitely possible. In this case, we did not see the importance of it at all.
The cell phone records have shown where people were on the day of the incident.
They sure could have, but I mean, everybody was in agreement when all the witnesses made the same statement about where it happened, even loosely when it happened.
They all agreed at the same time frame of the day.
Relatively the same time frame, where they're kicking off around 11 a.m., then going to the pool between 2 and 2:30.
Could have been used to verify what they said.
It would not have changed any of the elements of the offense for me.
Did you receive any text messages as part of this investigation?
I did not.
Were there text messages provided?
No. I mean, I'm sorry, let me rephrase it. You're talking about provided to Sergeant Schwarzburger, their work, yes,
Can you repeat those?
I did.
Would any cell phone records verify those text messages for you?
Yeah, they could have verified that a transaction was done, but not necessarily reveal any of the content. You only get content if you're looking at within 7 days. Again, we have a 100-day time delay.
Or if there were additional text messages sent?
If there was anything in the last 7 days of me being assigned the case, I may have been able to get that, but I'm not looking at, I wouldn't be able to recover any content due to the time delay.
And Milan told you she had a voice memo from that day.
That is correct. She used the word voice memo of Lincoln coming up to her door, jiggling the handle and saying her name. That's what she told me.
And you didn't follow up to get that voice memo.
I did not, I left it in her terms. If she said she had it, she sent it over to me. I did not follow up.
Okay, and you said you didn't because the investigation was happening rather quickly, correct?
That was one of the reasons. Also, when she first brought it up to me, it was mentioned as a voice memo. So in my head, it wasn't going to be some sort of groundbreaking thing that might show the actual event happening. So I figured if she had it, she said she sent it to me, and I would include it. If she's giving me something, I would include it, but she never did.
How long did it take you to investigate this case?
Without having my report right in front of me, I can tell you the date that I authored the warrant.
Couple hours?
Oh, you're talking about the amount of man hours or something that went into it? Just the amount of time it took to review the initial report, the text messages that were uploaded, the initial statement by the victim, and just enough time to interview everybody involved. So maybe a couple hours, like you're saying.
Okay. Was all that conducted at your desk?
Most of it was, yes.
And you mentioned you have experience with SANE exams.
I have some experience with, safe examination.
And you mentioned that they are intrusive. Correct?
Yes, I did mention that.
Not all parts of that exam are intrusive, correct?
I can't testify to everything that goes on there. I just know it can be uncomfortable if you're a victim.
Okay, but there's different parts to that exam.
There are several different parts.
Is it your understanding that Carissa left the hospital prior to being cleared by the SANE nurse?
She did tell me that, yes.
Did you review any medical records from that night?
I did not.
Did you ask to review the contents of Nick's phone
No,
or Carissa's phone,
no, I did not.
Alon's phone?
I did not ask to review the contents of any phone. I relied on the screenshots that were provided.
But that could have removed the possibility of some of that information being curated, correct?
That could have removed some of the possibility. Again, at this point, I had no reason to doubt anything that any of the parties were saying.
And Carissa was the first person you called after reviewing Sergeant Sternberg's work.
Yes,
And you told her on the phone, from what she told you, there was plenty of evidence to move forward.
yes, in the context that it was said in, she was worried about what happens next. And we just got done talking about her not doing a safe examination by saying, well, there's plenty of evidence to move forward with the case, which means I can continue investigating and it doesn't need to stop because no safe exam was not, or was done.
You then issued an arrest warrant, correct?
That is not correct. I offered an arrest warrant, judge has to review all the facts and determine if they agree with me that probable cause exists, which I did. I showed I offered that PC affidavit and a judge agreed to that and issued the warrant.
I apologize. I didn't mean to make it seem like that was done improperly. But eventually you took PC to get an arrest warrant.
That is correct.
And you took this to a justice of the peace, correct?
Yes.
Why didn't you take this to a district judge?
It's common practice to present a probable cause affidavit to justice of the peace here. That's standard practice.
Justice of the peaces even need to be lawyers?
I can testify everything about their qualifications, but then they,
And in your role as a neutral and detached investigator in regards to thoroughness and professionalism, do you feel like your investigation was done completely, thoroughly, and professionally?
I do feel that way. Again, I have to go back to, I would start off unbiased. Once I read the entire report and looked at all the statements provided, that was pointing me in the direction that I needed to look at when like this happened. I believed the statements that were made.
No further questions, Judge. I pass the witness.
State,
Nothing further from this witness, Your Honor.
may this witness be released.
No objection, Judge.
Thank you, sir. You're free to go about your business. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we will call it a day. Remember my instructions. Don't talk about this case to anybody. Don't put anything out on social media. Don't do any research. Don't go anywhere looking for this case. We will be back and start at 9 a.m. tomorrow, and we'll continue with the evidence. Thank you.
All rise for the jury.
Anything we need to take up on the record? All right, thank you, Ruby. Did you have a chance to look at the?
Nice.
Okay, let's come back in the morning then and say about 8:45. And we're in this. You have any more?
No, that sounds good.
All right, why don't we make you rest in case you don't want to?
Oh, geez, we have more. I'm sorry. No, we have no more.
Okay.
But we will rest in the morning.
Okay, very good. You're gonna rest in the morning, so have your witness available. All right. Well, we're gonna be here at 8:45 to discuss the charge.
Absolutely, Your Honor. We'll be here.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Everyone have a good night.
Judge, have a
Students,
good
come
night.
on up.